Sheriff.
You know how I like to start on time.
Yeah, start it then.
Okay. All right.
Louis gonna call him. Louis gonna call him.
Good morning, and thank you for coming to today's Board of Supervisors meeting for March 14th, 2007 at 9 o'clock, our regular meeting. Call to order at 9 o'clock. Pledge of Allegiance, Supervisor Jerry Munson, will you please lead us off?
Ready? Salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Munson. Next item, acknowledge certificate of posting.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second, and under a question, though. I just have a question for council. We talked about adding an urgency item to this agenda.
Supervisor Botello, let's vote on this, and then you'll be afforded an opportunity for that discussion under your department head under board announcements.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to know where that fit.
Yeah, we will discuss it at that moment.
All right.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against, motion carries 3-0. All right. C, presentations and recognitions. All right. This is an opportunity for the Sheriff Department. Sheriff?
Good morning, Chairman De La Cruz and members of the board. Thank you for having us this morning. My name is Eric Taylor. I'm the operations captain for the Sheriff's Office, and we have a presentation of some awards today from our office. Our office has recently instituted a policy and process for recognizing our employees for exemplary or heroic work. The medals that we have available to our staff are the Medal of Honor, the Medal of Valor, the Exceptional Duty Medal, the Life-Saving Medal, and the Purple Heart. Today we'll be giving two different medals. The first will be the Life-Saving Medal. The Medal for Life-Saving is awarded to office members or members of another law enforcement agency who personally perform acts that save human lives. The acts need not be performed under conditions requiring bravery or exposure to great personal risk. To be considered, the person having been saved need not sustain life in long term, but by the deliberate act of the office member must have been prevented from dying at the time and place of the act or aid was performed. For our Exceptional Duty Medal, the Exceptional Duty Medal is given to office members or members of another law enforcement agency who, for a highly credible accomplishment or act in the line of duty that brings public acclaim to themselves, their department, or the law enforcement profession. These acts can be any one of the following, but are not limited to: acts of bravery during the performance of duty, service with distinction under extraordinary circumstances during a major emergency, event, or special operation, or other exceptional service to the San Benito County Sheriff's Office. Today, the San Benito County Sheriff's Office awards the following medals, and I would ask for Deputy Cody Diller and Deputy Matthew Krieger to stand. The Life-Saving Medal today is being presented to Deputy Cody Diller and Deputy Matthew Krieger. On June 5th, 2015, at approximately 7:30 in the morning, Deputies Diller and Krieger were dispatched to a possible trespass on Wright Road. Upon their arrival, they met with a reporting party who said a male had been trespassing on the property and was acting strange. The male was not known to the resident. Deputy Diller and Deputy Krieger began a methodical search of the property. During the search, they located a male who had hung himself from a tree with a rope around his neck. As they approached the male, he was convulsing and was gasping for air. Deputies Diller and Krieger took control of the male and freed him from the noose. He was treated on scene and transported to the hospital. During the course of the investigation, it was learned the male attempted to end his life. He was transferred to a Bay Area trauma center where he was treated for his medical and psychological conditions. It was the attention to duty and quick life-saving efforts on the part of Deputy Diller and Deputy Krieger that resulted in the male's life being saved. He was then able to receive the care he needed. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, board members, good morning. I'm Captain Tony LaMonica with the San Benito County Sheriff's Office. If Sergeant Mole and Deputy Casada could please stand. I'm proud to be here this morning to publicly recognize 2 of our deputies for saving the lives of 4 individuals. As many of you know, we had a little bit of rain in January. In the early morning of January 11th, at around 2 a.m., I received a phone call from Sergeant Mike Mole advising me he was being asked by fire to respond Code 3 to Lover's Lane to assist with a water rescue. They were also asking for search and rescue to respond. I told Sergeant Mike Mole to respond to the scene and get eyes on the situation, and that I would also be en route. Well, when I got off the phone with Sergeant Mole, after being woken up and getting my bearings a little bit, I'm like, water rescue? We don't do water rescue. How are we going to do that? So I get dressed, and I'm starting to head down there. Well, when Sergeant Mole and Deputy Casada arrive on scene, they are told 4 people are trapped inside a vehicle with floodwater rapidly rising. 2 of the occupants were children. Or like any hero in a movie, Sergeant Mole and Deputy Casada commandeered a CAL FIRE truck and one of their drivers to transport them to where the people were trapped. Once on scene, Sergeant Mole and Deputy Casada stripped off their duty gear and climbed onto the running boards of the CAL FIRE truck. So if you could imagine these 2 deputies on a CAL FIRE truck holding on while swift water about 3 to 4 feet is going by them, it's pretty amazing. So while en route to the stranded truck, Sergeant Mole climbed into the passenger seat of the truck, while Deputy Casada stayed on the running boards. Once they were near the truck and trapped family, Deputy Casada attempted to reach the children, who were now on the roof of the truck. And the adults were in the bed of the truck along with a couple of the animals they had. By this time, the water had reached the windshield of the truck. Unable to reach the children and without any swift water rescue training, Deputy Casada jumped into the water and swam to the truck. He retrieved the children and passed them to Sergeant Mike Mole in the fire truck. Once the children were safe in the truck, Deputy Casada and Sergeant Mole transferred the adults and their 2 dogs to safety. The CAL FIRE crew then drove them out of the area. It was with quick thinking and selflessness of Sergeant Mole and Deputy Casada that led to the rescue of the family. Though there were Class 1 and Class 2 rapids, deep water, floodwater debris, Deputy Casada selflessly jumped into the water without proper equipment for a water rescue. We'll talk about that later. Had Sergeant Mole not been there to assist in transfer of the family, dogs, and retrieval of Deputy Casada, this rescue would not have been successful. It was kind of funny when I arrived on scene. I met Sergeant Mole right away, and he was as dry as could be. And I hear a car pull up and a dog barking, and it was Deputy Casada and his canine partner. So I turn around and I hear shh, 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 shh. I look at this gentleman here, and he's just drenched in water pouring out of his shoes. I tell him he needs to go back to the sheriff's office and get dressed and go home, and he refused to. He wanted to stay at work. That's the type of deputies we have here at the Sheriff's Department. So today, as I mentioned earlier, I'm proud and honored to honor Sergeant Mike Mole and Deputy Casada for their exceptional duty medal. Congratulations, Dick. Congratulations, buddy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Botello.
Yeah, I just want to thank the deputies for their heroics on 2 separate incidences, and it does reflect the type of deputies that we have on our street. They're not many in number, but we do have the highest quality people, and I certainly thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate it on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. Thanks. Thank you again. Any other comments, fellow supervisors? None? Okay. All right, we'll continue. Supervisor Patella, would you like to request an item of urgency?
Well, I'll defer to Supervisor Rivas.
Yes, so I requested that the item be placed on the agenda. I was given notice this over the weekend that the Bureau of Land Management, they have announced I believe 3 public meetings on the draft plan for oil and gas leasing in Central California. The meeting to be held in our area is tomorrow at San Juan Oaks at between 4 and 6 p.m. at San Juan Oaks Golf Club. And so basically what the BLM attempts to do is they plan to address oil and gas leasing and development on 793,000 acres of federal mineral estate, which includes several counties, but includes ours. And that's why they are having these public hearings. And so what the BLM is attempting to do is their preferred alternative analyzes the development of up to the 37 wells on 206 acres. And certainly with the with the voter initiative that was passed here in 2014 in Measure J, I felt it was appropriate to draft a letter from this board to educate and to let the BLM know that we do have local regulations in place, and hopefully that they will honor our home rule here. So, and that's what this letter I submitted a draft for that, and that's why I have asked for the urgency of this item so we can submit this letter
Okay, so
for the public hearing, which is tomorrow.
Okay, so you're asking that the board consider this as an urgency matter because of the timing issue.
Yes.
Okay, that's the first procedure we need to consider. So I need assistance from legal counsel. Does this classify it as an emergency item?
Yes, Mr. Chair. There's 2 findings that the board has to make in order to get this as an urgency item on today's agenda. The first is that there's a need for immediate action, which cannot reasonably wait for the next regularly scheduled meeting. Obviously, that criteria is fulfilled because the meeting that is important is this Wednesday. We will not have another Board of Supervisors meeting before that. The second finding is that this came to the attention of the local agency after the agenda had already been posted. I believe that was true yesterday. I believe it came to the staff's attention yesterday.
Okay. All right. So, and it will require 2/3 vote.
Right, and which in this case translates into 4 votes.
It's
Well, it's a 2/3 vote, but in this case,
4/5.
it's 2/3 vote, but in this case that requires 4 supervisors because it's 66%.
Correct. Okay. Questions, Supervisor Batalo?
Yeah, I want to support Supervisor Rivas in this urgency matter. My experience at RCRC, kind of indicates that if we could get in and have that dialogue early on with BLM or the feds, I think we're a lot more successful. And this is the first that I've heard of it was just a day or so ago, and I've had a couple of constituents, and Supervisor Rivas gave me a call. So I certainly hope that the full board recognizes the importance of officially conveying what our policies are to the feds on their initial public hearings here in our region.
Okay. Just like to remind my fellow supervisors, what's at the table at the moment is to approve the urgency matter, and then once it is approved, then we can go into a discussion on issues of merits. Okay. Supervisor Medina.
I move to approve the urgency matter at hand.
Got it. Is that second? Okay. It will require 4/5 votes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 5-0. Okay, we will actually place it. We'll place it on number. So that one will be number actually 20.5.
20.5.
20.5.
Thank you.
It's just for the public. Right after consent, it will be 20.5.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir. Yes, Supervisor Munzer.
Okay, just point of order. Wouldn't it be better to have it after one of the regular agenda numbers as opposed to after one of the consent agenda, or does that matter?
It doesn't matter, as long as we. Because
Okay,
we
all right. Okay,
satisfied
just
the-
make sure there's no confusion.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. All right. Okay, then we're good. Now let's go back to public comment.
Natasha West.
Shoot.
Hi, I'm Natasha Wist, and I came here because I heard and discovered that our Bureau of Land Management, which...
Madam, I would highly recommend that you hold off your discussion until we talk on that item. We're
Oh, you're going to talk on that
Yes,
item?
madam.
Okay, thank you for
Thank
telling
you.
me that. Bye.
Yeah.
Other public comment, Marty Richmond.
Look at that, Marty really took out 34 seconds of your 3 minutes.
I'll hurry. Good morning, Marty Richmond from Hollister. I'm here again about you-know-what, the library. Every day, our children get a day older. The most important product we have are the brains that we're going to supply the world. Humans do not live forever. I think most of us have come to grips with that by now. And so generation to generation, everything we've got here, except the natural world, was built by humans, was engineered by humans, was designed by humans, from the LEDs in the lighting system to the rug on the floor, to the tables, to the size of a chair, to the microphones, to the you name it. And, we move on based on how smart we are and how industrious we are. And we've got to do something about keeping up. We owe it to the people of San Benito County. It's a race. It's unfortunate. You might say, well, God sprinkles everybody with the same amount of intelligence, and that's the way it works. But they don't sprinkle everybody with the same amount of opportunity. And so if you don't give someone an opportunity to self-actualize themselves and become everything they can be, I hate to use that old term, be all you can be, but it's truth. Some people will decide they don't want to be something ambitious. That's fine with me, or creative. But, those who do need a chance. And the one difference between humans and other animal species is we have a way of conveying knowledge. We have language, and so it's about literacy. Language is literacy. It's reading and speaking. And everything we do is because we are able, generation to generation, even though we leave this earth, we are able to pass on this knowledge. Well, you can't get the knowledge if you can't read, and you can't express yourself if you can't write, and you can't speak. And so it's essential, whether or not you're going to be a scientist, whether you're going to write poetry, or whether you're just going to go out and punch a typewriter. It's essential that we become literate. And unfortunately, in counties like ours, where language is a barrier often, and opportunity is a barrier often, because many of the parents do not have a college education, we've got to do more, not less. We say we don't have the money, so we do less, but we have to do more. And we don't have to spend $47 million on a library. We could do it for less, but we've got to start moving. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Any other speakers?
Yes. Andy Shah Karan.
I'm actually going to speak on the BLM issue now.
Okay. Anyone else for items that are not on the agenda this morning?
George Vinich.
Morning, gentlemen. I came to ask about what's going on with Lover's Lane, the repair of the levees. I don't see it as an agenda item. I think it should be on the agenda for every meeting until these items are addressed. The levee is open in 2 places. Kevin's been very responsive. Mark's been very responsive. There are some other drainage issues I've talked to county planning about. They've been very responsive on emails, but nothing's being done. The road is an open wound. It's almost impassable. Candace goes a long way around and get back into the county. and I just don't see any action at this point. Now, it's difficult to patch potholes when they're full of water, which is what happened the last time, but water is going to stay there until somebody comes out and addresses the non-levee drainage issues, the old trench system, which I've given a report of the engineering study done in 1997 to Kevin, where it kind of asking the county to do a one-time clean on those trenches again, like Max Bridges did in 1997 or 98. I can't remember which year it was. The pond that's between San Felipe Road and Lover's Lane is at the 7400 block is no doubt artesianing again in the center because we knew that from the past. So the water is going to flow out of that illegally dug trench in 1997 until hell freezes over. And as a reference for that, that water has flowed, which comes through my property, since 1997, and it didn't stop flowing until this summer. So it took 6 years of drought to stop that pond from flowing out into the street. So either that trench, which was an illegal grade by Fancy Cut Farms in 1997, either needs to be addressed, or we need to fix the drainage system all the way through on the west side of Lover's Lane so that the water can get out. And until that gets done, that section of the road is going to remain wet, and you're not going to be able to pave it and repair it. Coming out between the 7400 and the 7300 block, there is water running down the unparceled alleyway for the undeveloped lots back there. I have not gone back there to look, but I'm going to guess it's the same ag well, which was been artesianing on and off since 2003, that I've asked the county a number of times, and which the county has sent a letter to the property owner in 2003 saying, fix the ag well. Nothing was ever done. There was no follow-up. So we have a section of the road that's going to remain wet until the county takes some action on the two sources of water. And then there is the issue of the creek and the levee. I know Mark is pursuing the long-term answer of who should be cleaning the creek, which we feel is a municipal agency issue. There's also the issue of when the levees are going to get repaired, and I understand there's a FEMA declaration, in which case there should be money coming. I see other counties getting their money for road repairs. So kind of requesting this become an agenda item until we actually see things happen out on Lover's Lane, because right now nothing's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's yeah. Ray, can we put this at
so I was just going to mention to the board that I've asked Kevin O'Neill to come up and give a quick department head announcement, an update concerning the roads.
We can do that
for department head announcement. So that's what.
And then the board can ask him some questions.
Okay. That was what I was going to do.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Anyone else in the public?
Ramona.
Thank you, George.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Thank you very much for having me here. I am here suggested by Mike Smith, who's our new Commissioner for Parks and Rec. I have opened a new Center for the Arts in San Juan Bautista, so my presentation is just informational to let you know that I exist there. I have 6 departments, visual arts, a theater arts, music, movement, legacy garden, and community outreach. I have already acquired directors for 4 of those departments. And I'm working with whatever agencies I can. I'm already in dialogue with the executive director of the YMCA. I've presented to the Community Action Board. I'm presenting to you. I'm working closely with Mike Smith to provide for enrichment in San Juan Bautista, focusing on youth. For example, our community outreach will include a literacy program, a restorative justice program. We will have, of course, all instruction in the arts. I have some business cards. There's enough for everybody. And I just, very excited to serve my community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other speaker cards? Okay. Okay, now we'll go to department head announcements. CEO Ray Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we do have a few announcements. The first announcement I'd like to make is to remind the board that next Tuesday, March 21st, we have a special board meeting. It's going to be with regards to budget. So I encourage all to attend, and those that can attend from the public, that would be great to get your input. We're also requesting to pull item number 11 and consent to regular agenda, or at least to be heard. This item was requested by your board. Unfortunately, we had scheduled to put on regular. Unfortunately, there's a mix-up on where we put it out on the agenda. So that item needs to be heard. It's an item that's of great importance to a lot of people, IHSS. The other item I'd like to mention to the board is the board authorized myself and Chairman De La Cruz to attend NACO. I just wanted to give a few highlights. We heard quite a few presentations by many people. We've heard definitely a lot of committees, commissions, and I think the nation as a whole is in the same boat we're in with regards to roads, infrastructure, healthcare questions or concerns. And what I gleaned from this was there was a lot of uncertainty, not sure how we were going to move forward from the very beginning of the conference. But one of the things that I gleaned from this was that there were 3 items on the table of great importance. And the first would be the healthcare reform, as well as tax, and then fixing the roads. So, again, that may change, but it looks like they want to address the healthcare first, address tax, and then address our infrastructure needs nationwide. So that's. I just want to make sure the board was understood this. Supervisor De La Cruz and I, we had the opportunity to meet with our Congressman Panetta. We explained our concerns about our roads, and we really pushed for support. And he's definitely going to support us where we can. So he knows where we're at with that. I just wanted to. I have much more. There's quite a bit of information. If the board or anybody else would like more information from me, I'd be more than willing to sit down with them and talk with it. But I thought overall it was a good conference. Definitely good to see Washington, and also to share our concerns from a rural county level, and why we need support for fixing the things that we need to have fixed. So that was that. I'd like to invite Louis Valdez. He's our management analyst. He has a report out.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. Several items to report out. First of all, the Class 1 permit that the board approved, the deposit of monies for the financial assurance. We received a letter from the Department of Toxic Substance Control on February 14th. The application, we received a notice of completion of the application. It is now in a 45-day period of public review. Once that is completed and any comments are incorporated and are otherwise reflected in the application process, the permit will be issued to the City of Hollister. City of Hollister will be then the lead agency on the management of all the Class 1 issues going forward. So we're pretty much done with that. I wanted to let the board know about that. I wanted to thank the county auditor and the county treasurer for helping us with that. It got a little bit complicated with the financial assurance at the end, but we were able to finally get that done. Second thing I wanted to report on, the Acela civic platform out at the Resource Management Agency. We had a kickoff call yesterday. So the IT department and myself are going to be working with the staff at RMA to get the platform built out and hopefully up and running within the next 60 to 90 days. That is our goal. So once we have that online, we will hopefully be able to have online payment systems and the ability to keep a filing system and all the permitting processes in that platform. So that got started off yesterday. We have staff attended the ad hoc committee meetings for animal control and also for marijuana. So I'm sure you'll be hearing more about those in the coming weeks. We will be attending a tour this coming Wednesday up in San Jose of some of those marijuana dispensary facilities. I wanted to let the board know that we had some technical issues with the meeting software and hardware here at the county. It's called a TriCaster machine that we have in the booth here next to the boardroom. They're going to replace that. It's been freezing, and we've had some complaints from the public and from the press, actually, that they've not been able to view the meetings online. So that's going to be replaced after a great deal of discussions with that firm. I also wanted to let the board know with regard to the Lover's Lane issue when the flooding did take place. We worked with County Counsel's office, and we reached out to several state and federal agencies. We did reach out to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and spoke to the gentleman who was in charge, Terry Bautista. But we also spoke with the San Benito County Water District, and there was a provision that was discovered in the statutes that provides for assistance to be provided to those folks in that area, but the residents of the affected areas have to petition the Water District directly. And I believe Barbara Thompson, who is with County Counsel's office, researched the statute, and we have that information available to provide to the folks in District 1 and to Lover's Lane. So we're happy to have a meeting with you all and give you that information. We're happy to do that.
Thank you.
And that's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. We also have another one out of our OES department, Kevin O'Neill, as I mentioned earlier. Give a report out.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I just wanted to give you a quick update on what's going on in the area of Lover's Lane, as well as countywide as a result of the 2 winter storms we had, and to build off of what Mr. Valdez just reported. In terms of the levee, we have been trying to leverage a program through the USDA Emergency Watershed Protection Program that pays for 75% of the cost of repairing the levees. We're only waiting for final approval on that before we can break ground. But if we were to start before that, we would lose that funding source. We went out to bid for both of the levees to be repaired, and we got no responses from any vendors. We've been trying to work with Don Chapin to come in and do the work, but I actually have a meeting right after this with our county engineer, Jim Pulfer, to discuss it a little more in detail. I want to be real clear, though, with these levees, the county has no responsibility or authority to fix them. They are privately owned, but this USDA program does allow us to come in and to assist the residents in the area on an emergency basis because the levee breaks do pose a threat to property and to life. We just need to make sure we cross all our T's and dot all our I's and protect ourselves as well as the residents. The roads, Lover's Lane is a mess. The roads crew went down and put some reject asphalt down to try to make it a little more passable, but it makes no sense to go and fix that road until those levees are fixed, because if it floods again, we'll just have thrown money down the drain. I wanted to give a quick little synopsis of how FEMA funds and state funds for disaster recovery work as well. FEMA funds and California Disaster Assistance Act funds are all based on a reimbursement system. So they don't cut checks and then tell us to go do our work, and they only pay to bring roads back to how they were pre-disaster. So if we had a beautiful, brand new paved road, they would come in and they'd pay for a beautiful brand new paved road. However, if we had a unmaintained road, they would only pay for partial to bring it back to roughly what it was before. We have had crews out filling potholes on many of our major arteries, Shore Road, Fraser Lake, Union, Fairview. They are, I can't remember what our roads crew foreman said, but they will either be on Riverside today or tomorrow, and we're working on getting crews down to Pinoch Road to fill some pretty major potholes down there as well. Nope, that's all I have for you right now, unless you have any questions.
Supervisor Medina?
Okay, the first one is just to repeat about the bids for the levies. There was no one that bid on this?
Yeah, so RMA put out an RFP for contractors to respond, and there was no responses. Because there was no responses, we reached out on a more personal level to some of the contractors to see what they can do for us. However, all the contractors are stretched extremely thin. There's a lot of work in Monterey County, there's a lot of work in Santa Cruz County, and there's a lot of work in San Benito County. And fixing these levees is a pretty touchy situation because no contractor wants to fix it and then it fail and it fall back on them, liability wise.
And then the second thing is, can you elaborate on repairing the roads? I know one of the questions that we had was on Lovers Lane. How do the roads look prior to the storms, and how do they determine what the roads look like prior to the storm?
Sure. So the two storms, the state and the federal government are looking at this flooding as two separate storms. There's a January storm and there's a February storm. And after an event like this, we go out and we do what's called a preliminary damage assessment, which we do with a representative from FEMA and with the California Office of Emergency Services. That was conducted last week, and the FEMA representative actually pulled up satellite imagery and was looking at all the roads that we were looking at, and that's how they were able to tell what the roads were like. I mean, it was the satellite imagery is from months ago. So, like I said, a road that was not well maintained will not receive the same funding as a recently built road. Does that answer your question?
Yes, exactly. And then the last one is the USDA, the 75%. I understand that we don't want to start any work prior to receiving that 75%. Do we have a timeline of when we anticipate to receive those dollars?
Well, last I heard, it was last Friday. So I reached out to them yesterday, and I haven't heard a firm response yet. I'm going to keep bugging them every day until they give me an answer. But we're supposed to be getting the final contract here any day.
Would any help from the local assembly or local senator help?
We reached out to them in the past to help get things sped up, and it didn't do much. Not trying to be negative on our local assembly person or state senator or congressman, but the USDA has their procedures and their ways of doing things, and it's just a slow process, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Batalla?
Yeah, a lot of the information that you gave in your report actually does make sense, but filling potholes and they've just gotten worse and worse, and we got to fix it somehow. I really think that we should go after every cent that we could go after, and I've been pushing. I think RMA and the administrative staff and your office as well, Mr. O'Neill. So I really hope that you keep that effort going, because in my district during the storm events, I had bad roads to begin with, but with the heavy truck traffic that was diverted off of the state highways into rural roads, it just completely made a bad situation unbearable. As far as I have a level of concern, the public speaker that got up during public comment expressed really no idea what the county is doing to repair those levees on Lovers Lane and that area. And what I just heard from you that, we're trying to get a contractor in. We didn't get any response. It doesn't necessarily need to be fixed tomorrow now. We're at the end of the rainy season, but it does need to be fixed before the next rainy season, and there should be a standardization. I dispute that it's a private property. I think that there's so much government red tape and oversight, and it's a waterway that we don't own that property, and there needs to be some level of standardization as far as what the levee repairs ought to be, and it should be reasonable to expect that they would hold during an average storm. And I hope we could get some clarity as far as what we're going to do and when we're going to do it, and what standard of repair or maintenance that the levee will have for the future, and answer the questions of those folks that live out there. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if I may add something, Supervisor Botello, you reminded me of a piece that I accidentally left out. We've been actively seeking a consultant to help with the cost recovery piece of this. We I've been in contact with 2. We're writing up an RFP to get someone on board. We just need to make sure we, again, follow all the procedures. But these consultants, the work that they do is actually reimbursable as well. Mm-hmm. So they will work through everything. They will help us fight for every dollar so that we can get the maximum reimbursement.
Great. Thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I may add to that, I just wanted to tell Supervisor Botello, thank you for that. I know Supervisor Botello was in an RCRC meeting. He heard from one of a supervisors, a local supervisor, and he conveyed that information. I went ahead and I called Susan Mariello, the CIO for Santa Cruz County, talked with her, and then was able to give the contact information to Kevin, and he moved forward with that. So I wanted to tell you thanks for working on that as well. Appreciate it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Oh, right.
Yeah, we have one more out of our RMA office. We have Brent Barnes, RMA Director.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just to follow up on Kevin's remarks, he mentioned Pinoch Road. We were down there yesterday, and we're going back there again tomorrow to work on that. It is in need of some work, as I'm sure you know. 3 things very briefly. The Pinoch Solar Project has restarted their construction. They were on hiatus because of the weather and some infrastructure issues over the winter, but they're now back underway, just so you know. Also, we have received the engagement agreement from California High Speed Rail. Now, that's the draft. That's the sort of rules of engagement between us and the county and the contractor, the actual construction contractor that we'll be operating under over the next several years. We have that in the attorney's office for review, and there'll be a bit of a back and forth as we work out the terms of that, and then we'll bring that to the board for ratification. I just wanted you to know that that's coming along probably in the next 60 to 90 days for your review. And finally, we have internally moved our offices in the space that we have to make room for the additional staff that you authorized and to make workflows more efficient. I think that we will be able to provide some enhanced customer service by having folks closer to the counter and directly accessible. Any questions?
Any questions? No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all the announcements, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, CAO. Okay, next. Now we'll go to board announcements. Supervisor Medina?
None.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
No, I'll reserve my comments for some items.
Thank you. Supervisor Botello?
Me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, a couple of the items that I have to report on are a little bit further in the regular agenda, but Supervisor Munzer and I, as Mr. Valdez mentioned, we had an animal control meeting with the city of Hollister, and it was a very successful meeting. We need to have another one to come back with a little bit more information, and hopefully after that meeting we'll bring back something to the board as far as some alternatives for the board to consider for animal control along with Hollister or another alternative. Had a meeting with Supervisor Medina and myself. It's your new ad hoc committee assignment that you gave us, Mr. Chairman, for alternative revenues. And that meeting went very well between us. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and some of the ideas that we would like to explore is renewing the business license process, and maybe adding on the fee structures for marijuana, maybe VOT tax, and so forth, and all in one package. And that's to take some coordination between the different committees and administration, but I think it will be successful and well received. And another meeting that Supervisor Medina and myself attended was the governance committee meeting at the San Bernardino County Water District. The governance committee is the City of Hollister, Sunny Slope Water District, San Bernardino County Water District, and ourselves. And it's a coordination of those agencies in providing water service and sewer And there's a somewhat of a issue that the county is well aware of as far as working through LAFCO to provide those services into what the boundary areas that were agreed upon with all four agencies, and the difference between the city's sphere of influence. And LAFCO, the governance committee, is working on that issue, and hopefully we get it resolved where it's satisfactory to all the agencies involved. That's all I have for right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Patel. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Because of multiple calls from constituents, I took a road trip Sunday afternoon down Panoche Road for two reasons. One was to look at the shape of the road, and it is definitely needing a repair. So I want to thank staff, the RMA, Public Works, the road crew for getting down there and starting to address that. And I want to thank staff also for hearing that we have a plan to address it. The other calls I was getting was about PV2. They are definitely going forward with their project. They have what appears to be a lot of solar panels. I'm sorry, I went brain dead. On the ground already, just stacked up. And the questions were being asked was, where are we on receiving the money that was agreed on in the development agreement? So I would like to have this agendized, Mr. Chair, and I would like to give a heads up to staff that we have researched any income we have received from this project so far, and also have request someone from the project to come and just fill us in on where they're at and how things are going, if we can do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair, on that item.
Yes.
If it's the wishes of the board, I can do that.
Okay, can you put it on the first meeting in April?
In April, yeah.
Okay.
And that'll depend upon our research. If for some reason it's lagging, I'll announce it out to the board. Department announcements, we'll have it maybe the second meeting in April, but
Okay.
we'll try to get on the first one.
And it's very important. I think Supervisor Munzer brings up a good point. It's because we're about to enter the budget process, and so we want to know if some of those monies can be incorporated into the budget.
Yeah, as an FYI to the board, I've actually been in communication with Eric and trying to find out where we're at with that the last few weeks. So due to the budget process, but I haven't really got a finalized response yet. But
two other things. Monterey Bay Air Pollution Control District will have its monthly meeting tomorrow, and in that meeting, the board will finalize the parameters of our annual AB 2766 grant, which we, for the last few years, and it looks like we're going to do again, are pushing to have vouchers and electric cars, charging stations be a top priority as the studies of roundabout. So I would encourage not only our staff to present a project, and any other agencies within the county, because there is a lot of money that goes to San Benito County through that grant. And last week, ANBAG had its monthly meeting, and it was announced that the 2040 MTP SCS workshop will be held on April 6th for public input at 6 o'clock at the Hollister Community Center.
Already? Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Munzer. My report, I'll make it real quick. I'd like to thank my fellow supervisors and the public for trusting me to allowing Ray and myself attend the Washington, D.C. 2017 NACO conference. It was an opportunity for us to meet with our congressman and to sit in a lot of seminars, transportation, healthcare, actually even marijuana sessions. One of the things that I actually learned is that when you have a new administration come into office, it kind of takes a while to know where the doors or even the keys to the bathrooms are at, and with this current administration, it's going to even take longer. I mean, that's just the reality. One of the things that I learned is that San Benito County is not alone. We all share the same problems. We all have Highway 25s. We all have funding issues. We all have roads issues. And it was kind of comforting, but at the same time kind of sad that the entire United States, when it comes to small counties, we're all in the same picture. We're all in the same boat. We feel the same pain. We as elected officials respond directly to you, the public. And unfortunately, those guys at the state and federal don't interact with you guys on a daily basis. We do. So we get the blame for everything. We get very, very little credit, but a lot of blame. And it's across the entire nation. Small counties, city councils, members, all talk to people at the stores, at the restaurants, at grocery stores, when you're dropping off your kids at the daycare. And so what I like to say is that I understand. We feel your pain. We're working. I think the way to solve these problems is through local activity. A sales tax for roads, local roads. That kind of funding mechanism has to happen because the federal government and the state of California government ain't going to help San Benito County. We're going to have to take this upon ourselves and be creative and think outside the box. And it was exciting, and I really want to thank Congressman Pineda for giving us the opportunity, especially Ray. Thank you, Ray, for asking those real tough questions of him. Thank you. And for his staff to say to San Benito County that we're here to help you guys out in the reimbursement for the January and February storms, to fix our roads, put our roads back together. So in a nutshell, thank you again, fellow supervisors. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, public. And what I learned from the conference is that we're all in it together, and it's all about the roads. Thank you. All right, we will continue to consent. Is there any fellow supervisor wish to remove any item out of consent? Yes. Supervisor Medina?
Yes, sir.
None? Supervisor Batella?
17.
17. Supervisor Munzer?
I was going to ask for 17 also. So.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Anyone from the public? None? And then
11 also, right?
11?
Yeah.
For,
11.
Yes. And Ray, we're good?
Just 11.
Okay.
Just
What's
11.
the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Oh, great. First item is number 11.
I'd like to invite our Health and Human Services Director, James Riding Sword, up to give you a brief overview of IHSS. I know that your board had requested that, kind of the status of where things are at. And I know he's been attending some meetings. I went to the assembly, I believe, and heard kind of the status of how that went. So I'd like to have him report out. Jim?
Well, good morning. So in my family, my father-in-law was famous for making sausage. And one of the old sayings that I've heard throughout my life is, one of the things you don't want to do is see how sausage or legislation is made. That's kind of what's going on here. In January, the governor proposed to shift $623 in-home supportive services.
Excuse me, it was $623 million.
$623 million?
Yeah.
Did I say that or not?
You said dollars, just dollars.
Oh, $623 million.
I was a little worried about the zeros myself.
Sometimes those zeros kind of make my eyes go in the back of my head. Two counties in the in-home supportive services program. That is something that he can do without legislative approval. It was, needless to say, not well received by the counties. It was also not well received by the legislature. A couple of weeks ago, the Assemblyman Ting from San Francisco, who's the chair of the Assembly Budget Committee, said in a meeting that the Assembly was interested in fixing this issue. And so there is a proposal that has been introduced to the Assembly Budget Committee, and I could go into all the details of it, but it's kind of complex. But basically, there is a proposal under discussion that would fix the issue, or let me put it this way: it would substantially fix the issue. There may be some details in there that cause some other things to happen, but it's there. The Assembly Budget Committee held a hearing on March 8th in Sacramento, which I attended. They took testimony. There were probably 300 or 400 people in the room. Many of them were people who represent IHSS clients and IHSS providers. The interesting thing about this is that if it does move forward, it really, in a way, does not impact the in-home supportive services program, because what we have been told, because we asked that question, is that the in-home supportive services program has, for all intents and purposes, become an entitlement program in California. So in San Benito County, out of that $623 million, we estimate that the impact would be about $585,000. If we cannot, which we've been told we can't, if we cannot just simply say, well, fine, we'll just reduce the in-home supportive services program, then we have to look elsewhere to see where we would pick up those dollars. In the case of the Health and Human Services Department, that elsewhere has to do with what is called 1991 Program Realignment, which was a program back in 1991 that created a fund at the state level to pay for local social services. One of those local social services was in-home supportive services. The other pools that could be impacted if this comes down are in our social services program, child welfare services, and in our public health programs. So if this money comes down, we will probably need to first look at what we would do within public health and within child welfare services to mitigate the impact of this. If we cannot do that, there seems to be no other place to look at that point in time than at County General Fund, which is something that I know the board would like to try to avoid. So the Assembly Budget Committee listened to everybody on March the 8th. They did not take action. They planned to take action on an Assembly proposal on March the 22nd, which would be a week from Thursday, I believe. And the action I expect they will take is pretty much based upon the proposal that says let's mitigate these dollars and not have an impact on county government and on programs like public health and child welfare services. So we will see where they are. And I do have to say that the governor's office has also been in conversation with the Assembly and with our state associations on this issue and appear open to an alternative proposal. So I believe that this item is a letter. Now, we sent that letter, did we? Okay. A letter to our Assembly members that says, please support us in not having this impact counties in California, and basically live up to the promises that you made in 1991. So that's kind of where we are right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'll be happy to go into the sausage-making portion of the proposal if you want, but it can get your eyes to roll back pretty quickly.
I'd like just to add one thing,
Sure.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
So obviously the state has made some agreements and some promises in years past, made some changes with salaries and a few other things, and now obviously with the ending of this agreement has now kind of putting the responsibility on local counties. Obviously, ours is a lot smaller piece of the pie of the $623 million, but there are many other counties, large counties, that are seriously impacted. It would decimate their reserves. Fresno County is a good example. I think they would probably deplete their reserves in 2 to 3 years because all their general fund money would have to go into this program, and a significant amount of money. San Francisco, there's some astronomical numbers. I think it's like $30-40 million that they would have to put up per year. So we have some large counties that are very concerned about this at CSAC, and as well as even the smaller ones at RCRC, and there's a lot of conversations. I know Matt Cate from CSAC has actually talked with the governor and explained the concerns, and so I think that there's some possibilities of them working with us and trying to figure this out. But we just wanted to make sure the board was aware of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Botello?
I brought this up from a RCRC meeting, a few weeks ago, and the big counties, they're pretty worried, but it would just be devastating to the small counties, and particularly our county. We just can't absorb it. The governor will put another alternative on the table, because what he has put on the table right now will just ruin the whole program. We just have to shut the doors, if you ask me, on IHSS. I don't see where the money comes from, and that's is at stake if something else doesn't happen. Were you able to, Mr. Writing Sword, able to finish that survey that RCRC sent out and resubmitted back what the cost would be to this county if the status quo in the governor's proposal is adopted?
I believe we have, and let me check when I get back to the office on that. Okay.
Thank you. Supervisor Medina? Supervisor Munzer? Supervisor Rivas? None. Just from my perspective, at the CSAC level, too, we've been talking about it, and I actually attended some of the meetings. And it's across the board, especially Fresno County, that they're going to feel the big bucks. But
585,000?
That's not pennies.
No, it's not.
That's a lot of potholes we can fix.
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you, Jim. We
Thank you very much.
Do we need to approve this, or just as a report?
We need to approve the letter.
Okay.
Oh, what's the pleasure of the board? Hold on, actually, yes. Public comment. You have any speaker cards, Chase?
The speaker cards on the side.
Okay, go ahead, Marty.
Sorry, I didn't have it.
No, it's okay.
Marty Bishop from Hollister. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. This is a strategy by the state of California. They've done this on several items. They put in a program, and all of a sudden, after 10 years or whatever, it becomes an entitlement, de facto entitlement, and then they pull the rug out and say, well, you got to pay for it. I'm not going to stand here and feel sorry for the city, county, San Francisco. Mr. Newsom came here the other day and said, oh, no problem, we gave everybody free health care in San Francisco. It was no problem, we covered everybody. Well, San Francisco's got a budget bigger than the budget of 10 states in the United States of America. And they got a $10 billion budget just for the city of San Francisco, so I'm not going to cry for them because they take in hundreds of millions of dollars a year just in TOT taxes, okay? He may have not noticed that the rest of California is not the same as San Francisco. It probably he missed it while he was driving through San Francisco. The governor, who I voted for twice, is just being irresponsible, and basically what they're doing is they're taking away what's essentially necessary because he knows that you will agree to anything to get that money back. So the more complicated they make the deal, And we've had this before. I'm going to remind you of the triple flip. Everybody remember the triple flip when he did a deal like this to get some money back, and it took 2 decades to unwind that and get it straightened out again, if it ever did. The more complicated they make the deal, as Mr. Riding Sword mentioned about the sausages, to get the money back, the more likely it is in the end that essentially you wind up paying for it under the table. I mean, the easy way is for the governor to just say, here's your $623 million back. I made a mistake. That's the right answer. The wrong answer is to let the legislature build one of these enormous house of cards like they always do. At the end, you get some money back, and then they come back next year and they pull a card out of the bottom of that house, and the entire house collapses. And we've had this time and time again in the state of California. And that money goes to support the state. It does not go to the people in the state. It goes to support that massive bureaucracy they have that has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people directly and indirectly employed. And so we're in a lot of trouble. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Done? I'll close it. Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve the letter.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 5-0. Okay. Next item will be number 17. Supervisor Patello and Munzer.
You could go first, Jerry, if
Go
you
ahead.
want.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, well, Brent, thank you. Looking over this, I see that there is going to be a homeowner association formed.
Yes.
My first question is, and I know we've had some other projects in the county where the homeowner association only lasted during the construction period. This homeowner association will exist beyond the construction period, and
Yes, that is the intent. It's a governing association for the subdivision.
okay, so the CCRs will continue on.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
CCRs
last.
will continue on.
Yes, sir.
And they'll have a board,
Mm-hmm.
and it will function as a homeowner association.
As a practical matter, this is an 8-unit subdivision, so basically the board will be the entire population of the
Okay,
subdivision.
okay. The other thing is, I know it talked about the homeowner association will be responsible for their road maintenance. Are there going to be any enhanced services that a CFD needs to cover in this thing?
I don't know the answer to that for sure. I do not believe so, but I will check.
Well, we're voting on it today.
I know. I will step outside and make a call before you vote.
Can we hold off on this project till we get that information? Till the next
Sure,
meeting?
absolutely.
Okay. That's an option for the board to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Supervisor Miller?
Those are the two questions I had.
Okay. Supervisor Botello?
Yeah. Kind of what.
There's no CFD for this one.
No CFD.
No maintenance district.
Okay, so there's no enhanced services that the county is going to be responsible for?
Right.
No street lights, no storm drains, no weed abatement, and, all the kind of things that we would...
It's not a CSA.
It's not a CSA.
No, I know, but isn't that what we're doing with CFDs too?
Yeah.
It's a different funding source. to do
Let
the
me
same thing.
answer your question. Get back to you in just a moment.
Okay.
I'll answer your
All right.
question in more detail. Sorry.
All right. Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I just need a little help with it. Anything out on Santa Ana Valley Road. I'm still trying to picture where it is in relation to the John Smith landfill. But the point I want to make is anything that happens in that area, it's a question I raised yesterday with staff, but maybe they got an answer, is that we should disclose that the landfill is out there. It's going to expand by, substantially an area, that there should be some sort of disclosure made on the maps that's take place, so people aren't protesting 20 years from now that we're digging another landfill cell.
Okay. It is, according to Google Maps Google Earth, from the southerly boundary of the subdivision to the northerly boundary of the present landfill site, just under 2 miles, 1.98 miles as the crow flies. The direction is north-northwest. The prevailing winds and all are west to east, so it's not in the subdivision would not be in the presumptive plume of dust or smells from the landfill, but that's a good idea.
All right. Well, maybe not this project, but any other projects that are maybe closer to the proximity, so we don't run into a Heatherwood subdivision again. And
Point taken. Yes, absolutely.
thank you.
Mr.
Chair?
Good.
I can hold on. Supervisor Munzer.
Well, I was going to say, from the map, and this is a very small map, it looks like this is more on the Fairview end of Santa Ana.
Yes, sir.
And it's between Mansfield Road
and Lone Tree.
No. Well, it looks like it's between Mansfield and Santa Ana Valley, and I can't. There's a couple little smaller roads that I can't read what they are coming off Santa Ana Valley, but it's on the.
It's on Santa Ana Valley, north of Mansfield, and toward the westerly end. Probably, I'm guessing, from this without any scale, half mile east of Fairview.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if that helps.
Supervisor Medina.
One quick question is:
Sure.
is there any? Is it going to be gated? I guess is
it
there
going
any
to be
gates
gated?
there?
No, sir.
Okay. But well, once again, I'm just looking at. I want to make sure since they own the property or since it's going to be non-county property, at any point in time they could gate it if they wanted to. Is that correct?
No, sir. Once the roads are offered for dedication, they cannot be gated. It's not the acceptance of the dedication; it's the offer of dedication that makes that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions?
I'm going to open it up and then close it, and then we're going to vote. We're going to bring it back at the next meeting so some of our questions can be answered.
Sure, absolutely.
And Ray, put it at the next available meeting.
Okay.
Let me open up to the public. Anyone from the public?
Kathy Alameda.
While she's coming up, Mr. Chair, so your recommendation is to continue this to the next meeting,
Yes.
not
to vote on it today.
No, okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Alameda. I know this is a really small subdivision of only 8 homes, and we've had many beautiful subdivisions in Hollister, but with them there were no parks, no walkways, no schools, no new and improved roadways have not come with all of this building. Just more homes and more traffic. What is the protocol for building a subdivision? What are the builder's fees, and where do those monies go if we're not seeing them in our public services? No one can answer?
We could.
We could answer.
We could answer.
We could answer, but.
We can go ahead and invite our
actually,
main director.
Actually, hold on a minute. Hold on.
We can email you breakdown.
You're still in the public comments. You got another 2 minutes.
Well,
Mr. Chair,
I would like.
I could advise that she could probably contact staff after the meeting, and
That
we'd be
was going
happy
to be my
to go.
recommendation.
Well, I mean, that's great. It's just that in other communities, I know that if a subdivision of X amount of homes are built, part of the policy is you have open space, is you have parkways, and you have parks for all the people that you're gaining within your community. And so far, we've received nothing. We haven't received a school. We certainly haven't received another high school. It's just kind of curious. It certainly isn't going towards roads improvements. God only knows it's not doing that. So I would really like to know where these funds are going. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. I would recommend that you contact our CEO office, Ray, and put all those questions on the list, and Ray, our CEO, will respond to your common concerns. And that also, I would recommend that you send your questions to the Board of Supervisors, because we will have another meeting to discuss this project. Supervisor?
Mr. Chair, I think I respectfully disagree. I think if we're going to continue this to another meeting, I'd like to hear those answers from staff. How much money is this project creating in impact fees? And kind of,
You want to answer right now? Do you want to answer?
No. I said since it's going to be continued to the next meeting, give staff time to come up with those answers.
Perfect. Okay, we can do that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, just to let you know, Jerry, all that stuff is available. You can look at it.
I was gonna.
It shows it line by line. It shows the impact fees. It shows everything. I don't have it on top of my head there, but I will email you exactly what the breakdown is, because there's charges for impact fees going to 25. There's impact fees for schools. There's a lot of different things. It's not that 8-home subdivision. They're just building. There is a lot of monetary expense to the builder, and I will email that to you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Supervisor Munzer.
Again, respectfully, I would like to see staff bring that.
I agree.
Bring that
We will
information
do
back
that.
to us.
That is a good recommendation. We will do that. Ray, you have any comments?
No, I was just going to add to that I know that our office has been helping RMA to post all the items on their website. I was just going to check right now. There is permits and license and other fee structures, so we could look at that. We'll make sure that if there's for some reason something's not there, we'll make sure we'll add it. But all of those items are on their impact fees and other fees associated with building.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, and none of this happens in a vacuum. We have the Intergovernmental Committee is the City of Hollister, San Juan, the school districts, and it's something that we weigh real heavily on, that this small subdivision that's providing housing for people. And we have impact fees, as Supervisor Medina has said, that goes to try to keep these services up. It addresses a lot of your concerns, Ms. Alameda. Now this is stuff that we still got to kind of work together with different agencies and keep more up to date. But we have to address, some housing needs, and affordability is another one that is a challenge. And we need to have these subdivisions pay into a program. If they're not providing it, they're paying into it. So there's money being generated. And I don't have the figures off the top of my head, but an average size house, you don't begin pounding nail until you spent $70,000. So.
I'm sorry, madam. You're online. I'm sorry. Okay. Do we have another speaker card? You're only allowed to speak once per session.
Andy Shaw, Coron from Aromas. This issue of minor subdivisions is of great concern to a lot of us. I live on one of those minor subdivisions off of Cole Road, Ricardo Drive, and because developers were allowed to do 4x4ing, to essentially keep on coming back as minor subdivisions, we end up with a very large road that has never had functional road agreements, maintenance, and so the roads have never been repaired in the 30 years. We've never been able, because the developers never even shared even proposed road agreements or CC&Rs with new people as they came on board. You've got this aggregation of people with roads that are disintegrating. The developers never fulfilled requests by the county to set back power poles to make it safer. So there's safety issues, there's maintenance issues, and of course, because it was done in a kind of slipshod manner, planning for properties is all very poor. And I think that as you move forward as a county, you need to think a lot more about how you interact with minor subdivisions to make sure that the same kind of problems that are plaguing my community don't keep on happening. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to remind the public that this item of discussion is about Sunset Hills Development Project only. Any other speaker cards? No, any other new person want to speak?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Matt Kelly, representing the owner of Sunset Hills, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I appreciate that you all want to be very comfortable with your decision before approving this project, but it seemed to me Director Barnes answered your concerns. If you're going to postpone this to another meeting, I'd appreciate knowing what your concerns are so that I could be better prepared at the next meeting.
Fair question. Any fellow super wish to respond to that question?
Well, I personally have no concerns.
Supervisor Munzer?
Well, Matt, thank you for stepping up. But I guess my concerns are my unanswered questions that staff wasn't ready to answer. In that, are there going to be CFD funds set aside for this? And is the homeowner association taking on the responsibility for all the enhanced services that a small subdivision like this would create?
This particular subdivision was approved in 2013. This was before the county started engaging in CFDs, and this subdivision was conditioned to form an HOA to generate the funding to maintain the roadways, the storm drain systems, the landscaping, everything. It is my understanding that this is a fiscally neutral project, similar to what you would get from a project generating CFDs, except the responsibility for collecting and managing the money is not on the county, it's on the homeowners association.
Okay, and when you say it was an approved project, that was approved by the Planning Commission or by this board?
By the Planning Commission, yes, in 2013.
And it's taken it this long to get to our?
Yes, it has. We've had delays caused by PG&E, by the economy, by other factors, and this is the final step. It's been a long trip to get here. I really appreciate your consideration. If there's any way we could get this approved today, I'm here to answer any questions and hopefully address your concerns.
And I appreciate you saying that it is cost neutral, because that's basically what my concern, the gist of my concerns, was to make sure that this did not become a burden upon the county.
The HOA documents have been reviewed by County Council and found to satisfy the conditions of approval.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Medina?
Yeah, well, with all due respect, Jerry, I know kicking the can down the road another 2 weeks, because that would be the 28th, is pretty cautious, but it's been since 2013. So, I mean, it went through Planning Commission. This has been looked at pretty well. I mean, I understand the money part. What funds are being received? Is it neutral? But this project I did a lot of research on, and I believe it's physically neutral, and it would enhance the Santa Ana Valley.
I like to give it a week, and I know it's been this long, but a week or two ain't not a big deal compared to what you were forced to wait. So
okay,
I think we can wait for the next meeting.
Okay. Again, if you could make me aware of your concerns.
I understand that, and I think we raised those concerns. I think we asked them, and I think you answered them. But I still want our staff, and I still want the board an opportunity to come up with other ideas. And I'm sorry, but that's the way it is.
Okay.
Members of the public did raise some concerns, and because of that, we're going to allow another meeting unless subject to my fellow supervisors saying no to me. And I'll ask them for the input right now after we're done discussing it with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you still want to hear about the funding mechanism, Supervisor Munzer? Because our does have some answers for you.
Well, I just want to make sure that the concerns that were addressed by the public are answered, and whether they can do it today or it needs to be done in 2 weeks.
Right.
What I'm reading from here is the notice of, excuse me, let me get it right, notice of decision that was signed by the Planning Department in 2013, and that is at the time that the tentative map was approved. the condition relating to the homeowners association says, it's number 18 in the NOD. Prior to recordation of the final map, the applicant shall form a homeowners association for the purposes of street lighting, street sweeping, maintenance of road, drainage, open space, and landscape improvements. The applicant shall also be responsible to initiate formation of a county service area through the same LAFCO, and county planning department shall ensure that the service area is
Barnes, excuse me, back up. What was that?
Which, the county service area?
Yes.
This was the 2013 language.
Well, okay, but that's concerning.
Let me finish the sentence, and then we can go on. Ensure that the service area is concurrently approved with the approval of the final map as a fail-safe mechanism. So at the time in 2013, we were approving CSAs. We were forming CSAs. That is not the board's policy any longer, and so the responsibility falls to the homeowners association itself for maintenance of those items that I listed. It's self-funded for those items, and remains the province of the homeowners association.
Supervisor Medina.
With all due respect to the people that were up there talking, I understand your frustration. I understand the minor and major subdivisions. But in this case, I would like to make a motion to approve the final map for TSM 0776A.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm sorry. Roll call. Chase?
Robert Rivas. Aye.
Okay, pass.
Jerry Munzer.
No.
Anthony Patello.
Aye.
Jaime De La Cruz.
No.
Mark Medina.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2. Thank you. Okay, let's take a quick 5-minute break.
Oh, we're always.
found out this weekend, and I was in touch with staff over the weekend. I believe it was Sunday. So obviously, thank you, staff, for being very responsive. I was made aware that the BLM will be having these public meetings, three public meetings in our region in this area. There's actually one today in Coalinga. There's one tomorrow here in Hollister at San Juan Oaks Golf Club from 4 to 6 p.m. And so basically, the purpose of these meetings is the BLM announces, why they're having these is they plan to address oil and gas leasing and the development of oil and gas on 793,000 acres of federal mineral estate that includes San Benito County. And so certainly the preferred alternative will analyze the development of up to 37 wells on 206 acres. And so certainly there are some restrictions on these public lands, like on national parks and whatnot. But what makes this unique in our region is obviously our county in 2014, we passed Measure J, which regulates the development of oil and gas in San Benito County. And then also the County of Monterey recently passed restrictions in Measure Z. And so certainly I thought it was important to draft a letter on behalf of our board that I would like it to be delivered to the BLM at their public meeting on Wednesday. And basically the letter, as you will see, staff made some copies available, basically is the intent of the letter is just to make sure BLM is aware that we do have local zoning regulations and restrictions for some of this oil activity or for the development of oil and gas in San Benito County.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Supervisor Rios.
Thank you, Mr.
Supervisor
Chair.
Medina?
To me, this is a no-brainer. It's simple. San Benito County passed Measure J in 2014, so I have no reason why we would not sign this letter.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Manzo?
Oh, I'm good with it. Thank you.
Supervisor Patel?
Yeah, I just can't add much more than what Supervisor Rivas pointed out. But my experience up at RCRC working with other rural counties and some of the issues dealing with the feds, I think it's imperative that we voice our concerns with the actions that they're contemplating on their federal lands, and that we insist that they're compatible with our other land uses and our policies in San Benito County. So our voices are strong individually as supervisors, but if we are speaking as a board, it's that much stronger, and we have to make that voice heard loud and clear. Thank you.
I'll open up to the public. Do you have any speaker cards?
Natasha Wiss.
Worth the wait. Come to the meetings.
More than you wanted to know.
First of all, I want to say I agree with Supervisor Dela Cruz and Panetta and his trip to Washington, because in this climate, it's becoming increasingly clear that unless we take charge of our local governments and work together to get what the people want, that we're going to be run over like a Mack truck. And I was absolutely astounded, and I started looking at the website, the Bureau of Land Management and the Congressional Research Service, that within just a few weeks of the inauguration, the fossil fuel companies, and it's a whole corporate structure of companies that lobby, came directly to the Bureau of Land Management in San Benito and Monterey County, and immediately put through a new environmental impact report that supposedly was supported by a bias-free environmental analyst company, of course, that was hired by the fossil fuel industry, and they're wanting to put fossil fuel fracking and deep well injection back into our public lands, of course, which are federally owned public lands. That means we own these lands. And I said, how could they do that after we worked so hard to preserve the land? But San Benito County is just a gold mine for the frackers. They haven't even begun to get their hands into this county. And we know how much of it is Bureau of Land Management. So I certainly appreciate your sending them this letter. And apparently there have been amendments under EPA just since the new administration, which allows wiggle room for these oil companies that can, because the Bureau of Land Management is a federally owned company, service, that they can, through this new amendment, this Planning 2.0, can delay and confuse the people. And if you want to read about it, you can go to the Congressional Research Service. So I'm saying that we've got to get together to preserve our county, our beautiful county. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of people, but it has tremendous beauty and resources. And the resources should be used for sustainable energy like wind and solar, not for fracking. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Any other speaker cards?
Larry
Rebecca.
Good morning to the board. I'm very pleased that some of you expressed, and hopefully the majority and unanimously you will support this drafting of a letter to the BLM. I think the BLM, when I went out 3 years ago, actually to this month, when they were located out here at the industrial park, since then they've moved to Monterey, the regional office for the Bureau of Land Management. But at that time, I was a proponent of Measure J, which passed overwhelmingly here in the county of San Benito, passed with 59%. And that's a landslide in today's politics. We have a president that didn't even reach 50%. And so I think here we're looking for local control. We wanted to preserve the beauty. If you drive down to the Pinnacles, the national park, you just wonder at the beauty, the scenery. Actually, Highway 25 is a designated scenic highway, and the voters have spoken, and I'm very pleased that the board, at least outwardly, I'm seeing that they're going to draft this letter, and surely I'll be out there at San Juan Oaks tomorrow. I did speak with the Bureau of Land Management 3 years ago. This was prior to even qualifying the initiative for the ballot. And they expressed at that time, of course, politics at the federal level has changed dramatically since then. But they said that it was a norm for them to honor whatever the locals wanted in their community. At that time, they expressed, the BLM says, if Measure J was to pass, that the BLM would honor the wishes of the residents of San Benito County. So I look forward to your support, and I appreciate anything that you can do, and we'll be there for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Andy Shaw-Coron from Aromas. Members of the Board of Supervisors, I too share Larry's thankfulness that you seem to be supportive of this idea of standing up for local authority. This is not just about Bureau of Land Management land. It turns out that in our region, much of the land is privately owned, and the Bureau of Land Management owns mineral rights beneath that land. It's what's called split estate. So if they were to give out these leases, private properties, ranches, the oil companies could then come onto these lands and develop the oil without the approval of the local landowners. Now, the folks in our county in every single district voted to approve of Measure Z. We passed in every district of the county. And so, and not just in our county, by the way, the other two members of AMBAG, Santa Cruz County and Monterey County, have both put restrictions on oil development in the region because all of them share a common interest in our agriculture and tourist economies and see a future that is dependent upon protecting our water and protecting our land. And so I urge you to share this strong letter, to share a strong letter with the Bureau of Land Management to assert that, especially to the Republican Party, which has always argued for home rule, that we've rendered a decision here in this region. I also urge you to reach out to our surrounding counties, Santa Cruz and Monterey County, and let them know what action you take and urge them to do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll close it. Okay, that's some good ideas. I don't know if Supervisor Rios want to put CC other counties on there so they can.
Yeah, I think that we should CC our neighbors there, the County of Monterey and the County of Santa Cruz.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval of this agenda item and staff recommendation.
With the CC on the bottom?
Yes, with the CCs to our neighboring counties, the County of Monterey and Santa Cruz.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Rios, second by Munzer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, now we'll go to regular agenda. Okay. 21, San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors to issue letter of support for SB 1. Ray?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this item again was recently brought up by our supervisor, Anthony Batallo, out of District 2. He recently attended RCRC and a meeting in Sacramento.
Central Coast Coalition,
yeah,
this one.
My apologies. And again, there was some information brought out about SB1 and really the urgency of bringing a support letter to Sacramento. So I think with that being said, we wanted to definitely have your support, and Supervisor Anthony Battella can probably elaborate a little bit more on this.
Okay.
And one more thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to thank staff because this was a last minute item and we got it on very last minute.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week I was up with the in Sacramento just on transportation issues, specifically road monies. San Bernardino County, I think we're at a crisis. We've heard time and time again from our constituents, getting flat tires and worse, broken axles. My dear friend Kathy Alameda supplied some photos, which I kept and I took with me on this trip. And I made sure that I showed the governor's office, and I left the photos with Senator Monning, and hopefully they had the desired impact. Bottom line is this, is that SB1, AB1 is being debated up in Sacramento probably as we speak. And, if nothing happens before the spring recess, the likelihood of any sort of revenues in way of tax increases or fee increases for transportation for our road networks, for state highways or local roads, is die and be gone for 3 or 4 years. That's what we've been told in our meetings. And just so for clarification, I was representing COG and was assigned to this committee. The Central Coast Coalition consists of counties Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, Monterey, and Santa Cruz County, and ourselves. And we spent the entire day meeting with transportation consultants and officials from our legislature, and we just have to, get some assistance and have Sacramento do the right thing for once, and move forward with a much needed increase in gas taxes, registration fees, and weight fees, and failure to do so. This is just the beginning of our road problem, just the beginning. On the local end, as Chairman De La Cruz noted, we have to help ourselves too, and we're come out hopefully with another sales tax measure to support our road infrastructure in the county in 2018. It's absolutely imperative, and we need to be a self-help county to leverage even more funds to work and repair and maintain our roads. I got Mary Gilbert. Is there anything I'm leaving out that I should note? Okay. But anyway, I respectfully ask the Board of Supervisors to support this letter. It's not as strong as I would have wrote, but, something is better than nothing. And Reed Sanders here is the senator's local representative. And Senator Cannella is a linchpin to SB1. He really is. And, we didn't get a chance to speak with the senator. He was out in the district when we were there, but we spoke with Ty Munzing, and I really put as much emphasis as I possibly could that now's the time for action. We could play politics, but there comes a time that you either play the cards in your hand and win this poker hand, or you fold and you've lost everything. So I hope we pass this letter, and I hope, Reed, you give the senator a call, try to do what he needs to do, of course, but this is the time we need the action. We can't go any further, as you're very well aware of.
I'm sorry, Mr. Reed. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. I'm calling him out like that, but he'll probably get it on public comment, maybe say a word or two. But Mary, I'll cede to Mary. Maybe she has something more.
You want to enlighten us, Mary?
If I may, if I could just add a little bit, I think Supervisor Botello did a great job of summarizing what we were hearing in Sacramento with the Central Coast Coalition. And I just wanted to report one important thing that was noted from staff was that they wanted to see all counties specifically supporting the measures. He had a list, and he said, if you're not on this list, how do we know how you feel? So it's great that you guys have this on your agenda today. And the COG board will also be considering a letter of support as well on Thursday afternoon. And one of the items that we've included from the Central Coast Coalition is reiterating the need for more funding for the State Transportation Improvement Program, as well as the local street and road rehab, and then some of the transit and rail projects. But the STIP is our best chance of getting additional funding for our highway needs, like Highway 25, and we're also advocating for maintaining of local and regional control over those STIP dollars, so that we get to determine what our highest needs are and which projects we want to fund. And STIP funds can also be used for roadway rehabilitation in addition to state highways. So we really are advocating strongly for those funds to be restored to the STIP, and then also increased as well, and so that we can see that growing every year and give us more flexibility. So,
thank you. Mary. Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, I wanted to make a couple comments. I noticed that this was on our agenda, so I was going to make these during my my general board comments, but since I saw this agenda item, that's why I reserved them. But certainly, so this bill in particular, I've been following for a while, and they have a pretty good website. It's called FixCaliforniaRoads.com. That's tracking this legislation and some of the issues statewide about our roads. But certainly here in San Diego County, very similar to roads throughout the state and throughout the country, our infrastructure here, in particular to our roads, is crumbling. You could drive in any which way or a direction a few miles, and you'll soon realize that our roads are a mess. And so I wanted to highlight this article that I read in the New York Times a couple weeks ago, and it's, from what I can gather, it's not fake news. Even though I had to read the article a couple of times, but to my surprise and to I'm sure a lot of readers out there, it wasn't fake news. But it was an article that highlighted the infrastructure and road problems in Omaha, Nebraska. And so Omaha, their solution to their roads is extreme, because obviously we have a problem here that has been exacerbated by decades of neglect, right, to restoring our roads and to improving them over the years. So Omaha, they introduced this concept of reclaiming roads. And so the process of reclaiming includes grinding paved streets into gravel as a way to cut and the upkeep of the cost of maintaining roads. So they essentially go in, grind up roads, make them a dirt road, keep them there. So the article talks about these neighbors and these residents. They had this work. They had this work done, and they said, "Oh, we're getting a new road." They came in, grinded them up, and they never came back. And they've had a dirt road ever since. And this is in Omaha, Nebraska, a pretty large city. And so, but when you look at our local infrastructure and this decay that we notice here in San Benito, I believe that we have to assume that our local roads are unlikely ever to see federal funding, as has been said in Washington. And in my opinion, although I support the state legislation, we may not see that money here on our local roads. We may see them in hopefully 156, maybe Highway 25, but we will never see them here, I believe, for our local roads. And so, it's because of this reason that our county, we certainly need a plan, as has been said by my colleagues, and we need a plan to improve and to fund our local road repairs here in San Benito. There's no question about it. And so I refuse to resort to the unusual, the solutions that Omaha has adopted, which of course is under the litigation there. No surprise. But if we don't act quickly, we may have no choice but to resort to reclaiming our local roads. And that's why we've got to take this issue very seriously. I think we absolutely need to pursue another tax. But this time I think that we need to change the discussion from funding Highway 25 and some of our this needs to be absolutely about local roads and funding local roads, not 25. 25 certainly is a regional problem and it certainly impacts us most, but we need to advocate at the state level for those, for the expansion improvements on 25. We need to fund local roads. And so I support this action, but I wanted to highlight kind of, this isn't only a San Benito problem, it is a problem in our state and throughout this country. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Supervisor Rivas, for mentioning that Omaha is being sued for grinding up their roads, because Supervisor Botello has been advocating that for my South County roads for years. So thank you that you brought up that they're being sued. But on the serious note, not last Sunday, but the Sunday before, I actually kidnapped my wife and took her on a tour of Cienega Road. And we went with the whole loop of Cienega Road, basically just looked to see what the shape of it was. And I almost threw her through the windshield because one of the potholes snuck up on me and I didn't catch it in time. And I was driving fairly slow looking for potholes, and one of them almost bit me. I want to thank Mrs. Alameda for the pictures that she sent that Supervisor Botello has already mentioned, that our roads are in bad shape. And so the last Sunday, I asked my wife if she wanted to go again and on a little trip. And she said, well, what are we going to do? I go, well, look at potholes and look at solar panels. And she said, no. And it was a good thing, because another pothole on Panoche Road snuck up, and I would have thrown her through the windshield again because I had to slam on my brakes. And I was, again, going slow, looking for them. So our roads are definitely in bad shape. I once again, I want to thank staff. We're trying to come up with a plan to deal with them as best we can. But as it has been mentioned, we need the public help. As we go forward with the sales tax measure, we need their help, because the day after Measure P failed, I was getting calls about potholes. And I was just, it was frustrating, not to get the public support, but then to ask, what are we doing about it? So we need the public support if we want to bring our roads back up to any kind of shape at all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any other speaker cards? Do?
Reed Sanders. Oh, are we still in public comment?
Legally.
I knew he
Legally.
Give him 2 minutes.
I can do it in a 90 if you want, but you run a tight ship, Jaime. I like that. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Reed Sanders. I manage the Salinas District Office for the California State Senate, managing about the 450,000 constituents of the Western 12th for Senator Anthony Canella's office. More importantly, I am a San Benito resident, lifelong Hollister, and I want to applaud personally all your zeal in addressing these road conditions. A blind man just bouncing down the road could tell you our roads are in rough shape. And in a lot of ways, federal funding, you'll hear from folks going to conferences and in caucuses and committees that the word of the day for funding through federal means, sometimes through the state, is uncertainty, which is an unfortunate fact of life in these kind of wild political times. So again, I want to applaud your zeal for exploring all available options, from local funding through sales tax measures, through state persistence, and federal pressure. I mean, we need to keep all these avenues on and to the wall to make sure we get served the way we need to here locally. To that end, I will make a very brief statement about SB 1. Right now, I will save you the standard bureaucrat speech in that it is moving through committee very well at the moment. And as Supervisor Botello mentioned, he has been putting on the pressure through Sacramento, and between his pressure and your board, and mine, bothering both the senator directly as well as his legislative director, Tyler, I think their ears are about ready to explode. They are hearing us. They are moving. The bill will be coming before Senator Canella again in committee by way of rules. I suspect it's still in committee right now. There's still kind of room for the political process, but it will be coming up for the Senate rules very soon. And hopefully we will be continuing to work for San Benito efforts for all of us. To that end, any support or pressure is always welcome. It's always a good thing. And I see I'm coming up on my 2-minute mark, so if there's any questions or any direct pressure I can apply and personal things I can enhance, let me know. I'm always here. Like I say, I do run the Salinas office, so my time in San Benito is often a little more measured than I'd preferred in the old days. But for you guys, I'm always at your disposal. So remember that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other speaker cards?
Kathy Alameda.
Good morning again. If we do get SB 1 or AB 1, let's do our due diligence and make a priority list of road needs, repairs, and improvements. I would support a measure as long as it makes a priority list of local projects and why they are important. The last measure did not. The vast majority of the money went to 25, and I'll be honest, I voted against it. I didn't feel it met the needs of us locals and our local roads. On a side note, and then I'll get to my point, the board should be against the high-speed rail that's coming through simply because the vast amount of money that's being spent on it while neglecting the current needs that are needed within our counties, namely our roads, our schools, and our medical and emergency responders. As to road repairs, I was hoping that the board would consider expanding the scope of the work of Hospital Bridge to include the 1 mile to the corner of the old Seneca Road intersection. In doing that, the worst and most dangerous part of the road would become passable. The gateway to our county would become welcoming and safe. And I'm sorry, Anthony, I'm going to throw you under the bus.
That's all right. You're not the first.
The county,
or the last.
Sorry. The county saw fit to repair Bixby Road out in San Juan Valley, where we do some farming and have an office. Their method of repairing the road was to close the road. That has caused a hardship for us in moving vehicles, equipment.
Madam, can we stick to the SB 1, please?
It has to be. I thought it was
yes,
roads.
Yes, madam. It has to be SB 1.
Mm-hmm. We have to do our due diligence if we do get money. We have to make a priority list, and we have to service our community and our taxpayers. Jaime, you run a tight ship.
Sergeant at Arms.
Sorry.
And that's a compliment.
Sorry. I'm sorry, but we'll be here till tomorrow morning. If any other speaker cards? Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Carol Feast-Hummel. I'm a resident of Hidden Valley. I'm here to support Kathy's presentation to you. I'd like you to give serious consideration to prioritizing Cienega Road. It is the gateway to Mudstone Ranch, which was opened last year, which is a wonderful recreational area for horseback riders, walkers, and bicyclists. You've got Hollister Hills that draws thousands of people on an annual basis, and you've got the wineries. That road is just a really unwelcome entrance into a really nice resource for thousands of visitors that come and make a financial impact to our economy. If you give that some consideration, it would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Any other speaker cards?
Marty Richmond.
Good morning. Again, you remember me. I'm Marty Richmond, and I was a big supporter of Measure P because we do need our roads fixed locally. But what I don't understand is this. If you're supporting local road repair, why are you supporting SB1? SB1, you're not going to get any local road repair at SB1, I guarantee it. It's an enormous amount of money, and it's a boondoggle. It's a typical California Senate bill. First of all, they take all this money, and they're going to take an enormous amount out for high-speed rail. And the high-speed rail guys are already asking, they've blown the budget 4 times. They're asking for $300 million more, number one. Number two is, after they reserve $200 million for road repair, they're going to take mandatory $80 million of that. I read the bill, and they're going to give it to the Caltrans. And Caltrans is not going to come down here and fix our roads, number one, two. Then they're going to take $30 million out of that, and they're going to give that $30 million to offsetting CEQA for counties and cities that are bigger than 100,000 people. Right now, we have an exemption. That exemption is because we have less than 100,000 people for CEQA and roads, okay? The problem is SB1 extends that exemption to every county and city in the state, which means San Francisco no longer has to pay for CEQA for their roads. And Los Angeles no longer has to pay for CEQA for their roads. And they got money they don't know what to do with, okay? So these are the biggest places in the thing. In the end, if we got our fair share based on population, out of a 12-cent increase in gas tax, a $38 a year increase in licensing fee, a $100 a year increase in zero-emission licensing fee, an increase in all the weights on the trucks and everything, we would wind up with a grand total of less than $170,000. I figured it out. What are you going to build for $170,000? How much road repair does that do? This is a typical state of California bill that supports, first of all, the state of California's enormous overhead costs. And they're going to put in a new office called the Inspector General to make sure everything goes right. Well, who's going to pay for the Inspector General? We are with this tax. This is crazy. What's going to happen is you're going to take a lot of money out of people's pockets, and then when they have no disposable income left, you're going to go back to them and say, oh, we'd like to increase the tax to pay for local road repair. And they're going to say, wait a minute, I don't have anything left in my pocket. You just put a 12-cent addition on the state gasoline tax. I could go on, but I won't. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Any other speaker cards? None? Anyone from the public? None? Bring it back. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Yeah, I think we got to refute a few of those numbers. It's be more than 170,000. Otherwise, why go through the effort? You know, the gas tax I think is if it is realized, increase, if you drive 14,000 miles for the average person, it's $10 a month. And I don't know if Mary has a few other numbers that we could work with here.
I just have the estimates from the Legislative Analyst's Office based on the funding of $2.2 billion of new funding for local street and road rehabilitation. That would equate to about $3.1 million annually to San Benito County, City of Hollister $1.3 million, and then San Juan Bautista a token amount of about less than $100,000 annually. But the City of Hollister and San Benito County all over $1 million just in that local road rehab fund.
Thank you, Mary. And no state bill is terrific. Anything that comes out of Sacramento is generally bad. I agree with you, Marty. But for a lack of anything else going on, we need some help, and we have to do something. And so that's why I'm supporting this. I'll make a motion we approve the letter.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Motion by Patello, second by Rivas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next item. County Administration Office received second quarter fiscal report for 16-17. Right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this item obviously is our second quarter report. Your board is requested to provide quarterly reports to your board of how we're doing fiscally. So we have Melinda Casillas, our management analyst, here today to discuss with you the status of the general fund as well as subvented funds and how we're doing so far this year. Melinda?
Good morning. Continuing our favorite subject, the budget. I wanted to give you a quick update on where we were approximately mid-year. Most of this report, just a short report, is going to focus on the general fund. So salary and benefits as of December 31st, 2016, I thought you might be interested in a couple of things. Overtime, the sheriff's operations was at 89% of their budget. Overall, their entire department was about 47%. We would expect to see around 50%. The sheriff's office with their grants, rural crime, was approximately 391% of budget, at 55% of their entire salaries and benefits budget. The jail was at 62% of their budget. Overall, their whole department with salaries and benefits was at 47%. And then all the sheriff's budgets put together was roughly, with their salaries and benefits, was roughly 47%. So even though the overtime looks horrendous at some point, it is overall they're keeping within their salary and benefits. A lot of this has to do with vacancies, and they're using overtime to accommodate some of that. The clerk recorder elections between their temporary and overtime was about 68%. Overall, and all their budgets was about 47%. I would expect the clerk recorder elections to be over at this time because they just had an election. So basically, all of their temporary and overtime budget was used in the first half of the year due to the elections. The juvenile hall, between their temporary and overtime budget, was about 110% of their budget. Overall, their salary and benefits were about 46%. They, again, also have some vacancies, and they're using temporary and overtime to offset some of that. Everybody else, their overtime temporary was around 72% of budget. But then again, looking at all the departments together, their salary and benefits were roughly 42%. So again, the overtime is over. However, they're using a lot of their vacancies to accommodate. They're using their overtime to accommodate some of their vacancies. Overall, in all the departments in the general fund, the overall salaries and benefits were at 44%. You would expect to see them at around 50% at mid-year. So overall salary and benefits we're keeping well within our budget. The amount that we put towards vacancy budgeting, the first quarter was roughly 39%. It was a total of around $525,000. And for the second quarter, we're going to put in approximately another 35%, which will be around $570,000 for a total we will have approximately 81% in our vacancy budgeting. If you remember correctly, vacancy budgeting, we take what you could, the opportunity that you had to fill all your positions, and we look at what you actually spent on those opportunities, and we basically take that amount out of your budget for that quarter, second quarter, and move that into our vacancy budgeting. You still have the opportunity to fill your positions in the next quarter, next half of the year. We just take what you have not used currently and put it into our vacancy budgeting. Any questions on salary and benefits?
Questions? None? None? Thank you.
Okay. The other budgeted items in our general fund, services and supplies, we're at 43%. You would expect that our services and supplies to have been spent about 50%. Other support, which is community programs, our cost plan was roughly 36%, and again, you would expect that to be about 50%. Fixed assets, we've only currently spent 14% on our fixed assets, and you would expect that again to be at about 50%. So we are well within our budget on expenditures at the half of the mid-year. We had this moves a little bit further after the middle of the year, mid-year, except I thought this was important to also see that we had the storms in January and February. Our payroll hours totaled approximately $85,000. We have expenses. We're still in the whole process of actual, obligated, additional, anticipated expenses. Actual and obligated at this point was around $383,000. We have additional anticipated expenses of over $500,000, and we haven't, according to Kevin, we haven't really dealt with the historical park, Lovers Lane Road, and some other small projects that have to do with washouts. Any questions?
Questions of the board? None? Thank you.
And then the last one, which I have another report for you. I was going to give you an update of the fixed assets and capital improvements. As your board remembers, I came to you asking for about $1 million worth of money out of reserves to help with some fixed assets and capital improvements that departments were requesting this year. So I'll give you a status update on that. Any questions on the general fund?
No.
Okay, then these are some supporting. Some supporting reports. The general fund. This is by department. It has their budgeted revenue, what we've received so far, how much of the total from the budget to the actual, and the same with the expenditures, what we've budgeted in expenditures versus what we have actually spent, and the percentage of the budget. So it would be approximately 50% at mid-year. I'll let you look through these as you desire. A couple of things I have here: 48%, 49%, and 66% in these. A couple of these departments. We actually came before your board and with some budget augmentations to address those. A lot of these departments that looked like they were getting over in the expenditure side, they actually share costs with other departments. For example, the Board of Supervisors, they share expenses, some of their expenses that are shared within this building. And so we were under in Clerk of the Board and adjusted Board of Supervisors. You'll see a big budget amount in buildings and grounds. We actually budgeted this revenue somewhere else. When it was posted by the auditor's office, they put it in buildings and grounds. So it's not like this money was was not anticipated. It just was budgeted somewhere else. And then basically the only other issue is general relief at 114%. We're obviously keep our eyes on the general relief budget and speak with the HSA department quite often about this budget. Right now, we're okay with this. Community programs, as you see, 96%. I just wanted to note that we're not over budget. It's just those are one-time expenses, and we've already paid those out. So basically, overall, the general fund is about 40% collected in revenue and about 37% spent in expenditures. Any questions on the general fund?
Questions? None?
The other funds, this is a snapshot of all the other funds, the same same report. Budgeted revenues versus what we've received, and budgeted expenditures and what we've expended, and their percentages. These budgets are these funds are a little bit trickier. We watch the expenditures, obviously, on a monthly basis. Their structure for revenue was a little bit different. So while we keep an eye on their revenue and their expenditures, the revenue often comes in later than the expenditures. We have general revenues. These are basically revenues that we use towards the net county cost. And just, for example, current secured property taxes came in at 57% so far. And that's because some people paid their first and second installments with their first installment. So basically, this is just an example of some items that are considered net county cost revenue. They go towards the net county cost. And so we're approximately at 46%. A lot of these items come in at the end of the year. I give you a little bit of information on economic items that we look at. Property taxes, sales taxes, property transfer, that has to do with the sale of homes and the taxes that are paid to the county on those. Just wanted to give you some examples and a trend of where we are on those economic factors. Property tax is definitely on the increase, and then we're showing an increase over 5 years. However, it's not really a lot of increase, but we are definitely improving from where we were during the recession. And then finally, the average revenue trends over the last 5 years. In particular, the general fund would be the one that we would be looking at. The 5-year average is roughly 39%, and we're at 40%. So we're a little bit ahead of the game. But as you can see on a 5-year trend, it's not really a big difference overall. So anyways, that was a report for mid-year. Any questions, any comments, concerns?
Thank you.
Okay.
For the public? None? Okay, thank you very much.
So basically, we're broke.
We're broke.
I have one more that I forgot.
Don't.
You can take a look. I'm sorry.
We don't want to hear bad news. Go ahead.
Want to go back to the other one? or to the report that I was?
No, we don't have any questions.
This report is included in your package. I just wanted to show you the status of the fixed assets and capital projects that we requested during the year, just a status of most of these are in progress. Some of them we may end up rebudgeting for next year. And then a lot of them are just ongoing, especially in the CIP fund, are just ongoing projects. So this was all in your packet, and you can look at that at your computer if you wish. Any questions?
Nada.
No. Okay.
Thank
And
you.
then next week is our first special budget meeting. And so we'll be coming, we're just preliminarily looking at our budget for 17-18. And so we'll bring back a little more detail and information for you next week.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're good?
Great.
Okay. Next item will be 23 county, right?
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Louis Valdez. He'll actually introduce the item.
Who are you, sir?
I am your management analyst, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Next on the agenda, you have an item that's agendized. It's going to be from Optera Energy Solutions, and Mr. Ashu Jain is going to present this item. Give you a little bit of background on this item. The effort that the administration has taken to look and see where we can maximize opportunities to implement efficiencies within the organization is of primary importance. And one of those efforts is to see how we are spending our money on energy usage. As you all are well aware, PV2 is a major project that is going to provide solar energy power to Central and Southern California. You voted a few weeks ago to join the partnership along with Monterey County for the Community Energy Alternative Choice program. And so this particular proposal and this effort and this presentation that you're going to see from Mr. Jain is along those very same lines, the effort to engage the available technologies and strategies to bring those efficiencies within the county and to use those efficiencies and technologies to power our facilities through the use of solar power. There have been many communities in and around all of California, but particularly in Southern and Central California, who have used solar energy to fund their capital facilities, and they've reduced their costs significantly going forward. You'll hear that presentation and that type of proposal from Mr. Jain and his associate. So at this time, I'd like for Mr. Jain to come up and give that presentation to you. The CAO's office did meet with Mr. Jain and his associate a few weeks ago, explained the entire process. We have provided his firm with information about the county's energy usage, and so he'll speak to that and to the parameters of his particular firm's program going forward. So, Mr. Jain.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board and staff. I'm Ashu Jain with Optera Energy Services. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. Before I start, I'd like to introduce our our senior project director, Tamara Sila. She's with me here. And Tamara heads our San Jose office. She has a team of project engineers and project managers who report to her and manage all the projects in this area. And we have substantial activity in this area also that I'll go through. So I'm going to take you through this presentation. Please feel free to interrupt me at any time with questions. And I know it's I'm going to try and be as brief as possible. So just briefly about Optera Energy Services, we were part of Chevron till a couple of years ago. And then Chevron, when the price of oil went down, Chevron decided to get rid of a lot of their ancillary businesses. And they sold us. And we are now owned by a company called ENGIE, which is the largest European utility as well as the largest independent power producer in the world. And substantial assets and 150,000 employees. And the reason I point that out is we have in our business, we guarantee savings, millions of dollars of savings for the long term. And it's important that you work with a company that has the financial wherewithal to back those guarantees up. We've been in business for a long time. Before Chevron, we were part of PG&E. I don't know if that's a plus or a minus here, but so we were always part of big companies. We are, in terms of resources, the largest company in California. We have over 70 people in California. We have 7 offices. Our corporate office is in Oakland, and we have several offices throughout the state. So we have a lot of resources, and we've been most of our work is done for the public sector, over 95% of it, and we've done a tremendous amount of solar projects, over 150 megawatts. We've done a lot of work for counties. I'm going to take you through very briefly through some of these projects, but I think I can say with conviction that we have done more work for California counties than any other company in our business. And not only that, what I didn't list is the amount of work that we've done regionally here. We just completed a $25 million project for City of Salinas. We've done work for City of Gonzales, City of Greenfield, City of King City, Hartnell College. We've done a few projects. And then last week, we got approval from the Monterey Bay Regional Airport to do a solar project. So we've been in business for a long time and have a good resume of projects and resources. I'm not going to take you through all these projects. I'll just highlight a couple of them. Madera County, we did a solar project for their jail and also for their administration building. Did HVAC for the library. Riverside County is in progress. It's a $55 million project. Something that I want to go back to, and I forgot to highlight that, is every one of these projects was negotiated sole source, no RFP, no RFQ. And that's a pretty standard thing in our business, and I'll talk more about that down in the presentation. Riverside County, $55 million project. We're in the middle of construction of that. We did a project for Sacramento County around 7-8 years ago. Sutter County, Yuba County. I just picked one project to highlight. It's Kings County, and we've done three projects for them until now. A total of $16 million. It saved them $10 million after all costs. And I'll just take you through some of these projects. Back in 2003, we did a cogeneration system for their administrative complex, which includes the jail. Cogeneration is where you produce electricity at site using natural gas. So we did that. We did a lot of lighting at that time, fluorescent lighting. Then we came back in 2008 and did an 1,100-ton central cooling and heating plant, so a huge heating and cooling plant, and thermal energy storage. It was a campus. Basically, we combined a lot of buildings and put one plant in. Then 3 or 4 years ago, we went and did a solar project for the county, one for the administration, the government center, and then one for the Hanford Library. So that's fairly typical of the kind of projects we do. It includes, HVAC, building lighting, energy management systems, solar. So those are the kind of projects that we do. I'm going to come back to this slide if you'll indulge me after the end of the presentation. So usually our process is that we do a feasibility study, an opportunity assessment, and once we do that, we ask this county board to approve an agreement for us to develop the project. And we do these development, we do this at our risk. Even though there is a fee for the program development, you don't owe that fee if we come back with a project that doesn't pay for itself. So only if the project that we come back with, we're willing to guarantee that the energy savings will be in excess of the lease payment, only then you will you'll have two options. Either you can implement the project with us, or you can elect to pay us for the development fee, which we keep intentionally very low. And if you develop the program, which will probably take around 3 months, and the savings are not in excess of the lease payment, you don't owe us anything. I'm sorry, I'm going back. In talking to staff, these are some of the opportunities that we would like to, we would be looking at. LED lighting at the jail. When we actually, our team visited the jail and the juvenile hall, and an interest was expressed by the jail commander for HVAC of the jail. So, this all still needs to be vetted out in the program development stage. I think there's some good opportunities for solar at the county. The solar project for the jail, which is probably our largest load right now, electrical load. And we can also, the jail has area that we can install a solar project there and avoid electricity use at all your other county facilities. And you're allowed to do that using a rate schedule that PG&E has. You're allowed to avoid around 40 to 45%, and that's the most you can avoid. So that's a project that could be pretty lucrative. And I've in the next couple of slides, I'll take you through that. LED lighting at all the county buildings, that always pays off. It's always a good project. You get some incentives from PG&E for that. We will definitely look at replacing any older air conditioning at the county. And when we met Mr. Valdez and Mr. Espinoza, it was we were informed that there are some older air conditioning units in the county that we should be looking at. Another project that I've listed here is solar project for your community choice energy program, and you have space at the landfill. We can again, these are projects that we'll evaluate and bring it to your bring it to the staff first, and then to the board, and see if there's any interest. Some of these won't pencil out and won't make sense, but these are the kind of projects that we are thinking that could apply to your county. And of course, water conservation and recycling. We don't want to forget about water conservation. So quickly, we just did an analysis of what is possible. I just wanted to give you an example of what is possible as far as solar currently. So we can, in looking at the jail, we can do a 300 kilowatt project for the jail and a 500 kilowatt project for the rest of the county. And so you see on the left is the 300 kilowatt project that will be connected to the jail meter. On the right is the 500 kilowatt project that will be connected to juvenile hall meter, but it'll actually avoid electricity use at all the county buildings, as well as juvenile hall.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on
Yes,
this.
sir.
I think we've kind of kicked around the solar at the jail for a while, and I love the idea. And looking at this type of layout, I don't know if we've done any sort of cost analysis as far as the value of the land against the creation of the value of the electricity, and whether or not if there's other options that might be available as far as putting the panels in the parking lot and on top of the new facility as it's being built to create the same volume of electricity?
Well, that would be what we would be doing in the development stage. But that's a good point. The land, and we are just showing that those panels located at this part of the space. It might be more, it might be better to locate them somewhere else at the jail site, or the 500 kilowatt one can also be located at the landfill, for instance, which is really, there's no other use for it. And we've done projects at landfill before. So that all gets, detailed and finalized in the next phase of the project. So
and I think
very true.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, I think what Ashu is saying here is this is more of just a footprint kind of of what we would probably need for powering up our facility. So that just gives you a pictorial. We could probably look at it, and when he goes through the evaluation, if the board decides to go this direction, we could probably look at other options as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Supervisor Buncer?
So the 500 watt would spin, in theory, all the county meters backwards?
Correct. So what you do is...
So you don't have to have, so we don't have to have a project in the parking lot across the street to spin the meter backwards on this building. We can put all the meters together, do one project, and basically, in theory, spin them backwards.
In essence, yes.
Okay,
So
all right.
what you do is you sell that energy to PG&E, and you tell PG&E where do you want the credits, and you can choose up to 50 accounts where you want these credits to be applied.
Gotcha.
So that's how it gets worked out.
And working with you, we would be purchasing the panels as opposed to renting them, like.
Right. So we are totally agnostic as far as financing of the project. We can, we'll. Right now there is, if I can go to the next slide, there is low interest financing available through something called Clean Renewable Energy Bonds, and they've been around for a long time, and they are actually going to sunset here in a few months. There's only $154 million left nationally as of March 1. And it started with $800 million in 2015. So it's going down. So that's one reason this is fairly urgent. That is low cost, low interest rate, and you can go up to 30 years. And we have only shown a 19-year finance term, and this is very, very approximate. I just wanted to show you, for the two projects that I mentioned, roughly around $2.5 million, and it can save you $100,000 a year over the financing term of 19 years, and over 30-year program life, it will be as much as $7 million. There are, of course, a lot of assumptions built into this, and but it could be relatively lucrative to do this. So I wanted to go, unless you have any other questions, I wanted to take you through this slide about competitive procurement. And this is usually a question that comes up in our presentations, and I just wanted to head it off. And it is that, why should you work with us versus doing a request for proposal? And some of the key reasons are, as I've hopefully demonstrated, we have resources, and we have the experience to do these projects. And the big benefit is that, I lost that. So the big benefit is that, you're going to be working with a very qualified company. We guarantee savings for 20 years. If the savings are less than what we estimated, we'll write you a check for the difference every year for the next 20 years. And the other thing we offer is that we'll do a completely, transparent pricing structure. So we'll work with staff and show them, how much we're buying the panels for, and how much our subcontracts are, and how much is our fee on top of that. So it's completely transparent, and we do that for all our government customers. And we do a tremendous job in trying to source locally. So we would encourage the local contractor community to, we design it ourselves, we manage it ourselves, we buy all the material, but we have subcontractors to install the material. And that's where we do a great job, and that's Tamara's responsibility to encourage the local contractor community to participate in that. So that's another benefit. If you do an RFP, the biggest disadvantage, and the reason that all these counties and cities and County of Riverside, $55 million project, completely sole sourced it to us, is the fact that, if you want to do a large project, and you want to do an RFP, you'll have to hire a consulting engineer to draw plans and specs. And any consulting engineer is going to charge you 6 to 7%. And for even a $5 million project, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, you don't even know at this point that these projects are financially sound. This is just an estimate from us. To spend that kind of money up front is really something that, people find difficult to, boards find difficult to do. And that's why there is this legislation. And that's why to encourage, California government entities to do these projects, negotiate these projects, to promote these projects, we have Government Code 4217, which allows public entities in California to sole source these projects. And that's exactly why these projects were not getting done. And that's why this legislation was enacted. And it's been there for actually 20, 25 years now. And the other thing is, we will get this project done quickly. I mean, if you go through an RFP process, that just takes a long time, and construction costs are going up. Low interest financing might not be available. So if you look at it overall, it's probably less expensive for the county to work with a qualified company rather than try and attempt to do this with your staff through an RFP process. So I'll be happy. That's the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Botello? No, Supervisor Medina?
No, sir.
Supervisor Miller? Supervisor Rios? Yeah, I guess. No. Thank you. Ray?
I think we want to open up to the public possibly for comment.
I'll open it up to the public comment. None? Close it? Okay, so what's
I just have one more comment that I forgot to make. So the next step in our process would be we would work with the county, with the staff on a program development agreement, and would like to bring it back to the board whenever a county council is comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be.
Do you need direction from us?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, when you look at the background summary, it actually requests that your board actually goes ahead and works with Optera Solutions Partnership for Solar Energy between San Bernardino County and his firm. So just give us direction to go that direction if you'd like.
Okay. All right. I want to hear direction from the board. Supervisor Botello?
I was. Go ahead, Mark.
Medina?
Go ahead. Well, I think we should be exploring alternative energies and moving forward with this and see what could be done if it's to have a cost savings for our energy needs and go and move forward.
Do you move forward with this present the Friends Center, or the concept of the idea of moving forward for alternative energy?
Well, at the bare minimum, the concept, but I think we need to have a proposal done and look at a more detailed proposal. Is that what we're trying to get to?
That's exactly right. Ashu, can you explain the time frame with the funds again one more time, just or the urgency of this item?
Yes, sir. So Clean Renewable Energy Bonds was an ARA funding proposal. It came out in the 2007-8, and then it got depleted. And then there were certain agencies that said they'll do the projects, they never did. So in 2015, they allotted $800 million for public agencies throughout the country. And it's been depleting lately. They've been, in November, and on October 1, there were $446 million. On January 1, it dropped to $274 million. And today, in March 1, they update, I might be wrong, and they update twice, once every 2 months. And so March 1, they have $154 million left. So it's, I think, and it'll take us time to develop the project, to file the application. And so then we need to give them, firm pricing and engineered, layouts and all of that. So, and then the county has to work with a financial advisor to put it all together. So that's the urgency of it.
And the estimated cost to San Bernardino County's general fund is how much?
It should be a savings to the general fund.
It's savings in development, right? Well, that's what if we're kicking money out of our pockets, it might be a little bit more thought to this. But to me, it seems like as long as it's a savings development, and because I've always felt that we should be doing some solar.
We guarantee
there
that
on
there'll be
county
savings.
properties that we have in the landfill as well.
One answer.
Okay, so as I'm reading staff recommendation, it's staff is asking us to give them permission to proceed with an analysis and to come back in our March 28th meeting.
That's all right.
I'm good with that, and I so move.
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
5-0. All right, good. Thank you, Joe. You got 8 minutes on your presentation.
I think you can do it in 5, Joe.
He always says.
Where's Reed? Where's Reed when we need him?
Still good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just me. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe Paul Gonzalez, County Clerk, Auditor, and Recorder. Today I've been tasked with providing you kind of an overall presentation of what we do in the County Auditor's Office. And I just wanted to start off by saying that the County Clerk, Auditor, and Recorder has been a consolidated elective office since 1874. It has been unchanged since the incorporation of the county. The controller is the ex officio duty of the county auditor. And today I'm going to focus on the auditor controller portion only. And in the first meeting in June, we're going to talk about the recorder, the county clerk, and the ex officio duties of the county clerk, which is the registrar of voters. So the county auditor is the chief accountant officer for the county for all of the county activities and county departments. The auditor's mandate is to ensure that all of the required auditor controller functions that are defined in the California Constitution under the various California codes and by the Board of Supervisors are performed. And that those duties are defined in government codes starting at sections 26,800 and 26,900. So the primary mission of the county auditor controller is to ensure the fiscal integrity of the county's financial records and to provide service, assistance, and information to the public, the Board of Supervisors, the County Administrator's Office, county departments and employees, cities, schools, and special districts, and some non-county agencies. The County Auditor Controller's Office is dedicated to providing all our customers exemplary professional service, and that means we treat our customers with respect, fairness, integrity, and trust at all times. The office is responsible for department administration, for the setting of policies and policy guidance as it relates to financial transactions and anything related fiscally to the department and to the county. As you know, the county auditor's office is responsible for disbursements of accounts payable, payroll, and property taxes. We do general accounting in the auditor's office. We do budgetary control and management. I know it's a major irritation for many departments when they budget an item in service and supplies, but they wanted to, buy a fixed asset. Well, at our office, kind of the buck stops there. Those purchases are not allowed until the proper treatment as far as the budget authorization has been made. And that's an important function that we serve there. We also deal with the internal controls of the county. And we're very much involved in the ERP systems of the county, and we perform the fiscal aspects of risk management. So we generate paychecks, pay warrants, and issue payments to vendors. We generate the 1099 IRS and state informational reporting. We audit and process all travel reimbursements. We control and input various deductions for employees. We monitor employee leave balances and generate W-2 informational reports. We generate the IRS 941 report and the state quarterly reports. One of the main functions that we perform is the preparation of the county's annual fiscal report, or CAFR. The audit committee is well aware of that report is pretty much a year-long process. In that, we are discussing it every month at the audit committee meeting. It didn't start off that way, but it's pretty much how it's been for the last few years. The general accounting is responsible for establishing controls for the county's financial transactions. We oversee all accounting and distribution of all the revenues, actually. We prepare the county's. We're responsible for preparing the county's state-mandated cost plan program, and which we use now in our budgets, and so that all of our budgets reflect these overhead costs that show the true cost of providing that service. In years past, we wouldn't include that in, like, for example, in the sheriff's department. So when we looked at those costs, we only saw the salaries and benefits, service supplies, fixed assets, but we did not have overhead in those costs, so we didn't have an accurate picture of what the true costs of providing those services were. And of course, we provide departmental support for complex accounting issues and analysis. We perform the annual county and county CSA annual financial transactions report. It generally takes us about a week to get that report completed. We also prepare the local government compensation report, which used to be a big job for us because our old BITEC system didn't lend itself very well to creating the information that's required for that state report. We perform the quarterly sales tax returns on behalf of the county. We audit the county transit occupancy taxpayers. And we, on occasion, as time permits, we do internal audit of departments. The property tax unit portions property taxes to the county, to the cities, school districts, and special districts. According to all the applicable laws, Revenue and Taxation Code, Health and Safety Code, school code, there are many laws that come into play in the apportionment of property taxes. We also administer the county's teeter plan program. The teeter plan provides 100% financing of all, apportioning all of the property taxes associated with each jurisdiction. And in return for that, the county teeter plan purchases the delinquent receivables, and we administer those delinquent receivables, and we recognize the revenue every year for those earnings on those receivables. The ERP system, the county auditor controller is responsible for providing procurement, development, implementation, maintenance, and training for countywide and department administered systems in collaboration with information technology. It's some of the things that we're doing in the ERP system right now. I won't read the whole list, but an important one, for example, is we are working to integrate the CAMS program, which is in the RMA department. We want to integrate those transactions that occur in that department with our New World System ERP system, so that every time a transaction occurs there, whether there are payroll transactions or some sort of invoice transaction, those would be recorded automatically. And with that same initiative that we're working on, the Acela program, which was purchased for and close to being fully implemented in the planning aspects of the planning, used to be, I guess, planning division of the RMA. The three systems, you have the Acela system, which is basically a system for cashiering of transactions related to deposits that are made, plans that are permits that are being purchased, those kinds of things, those transactions that the planning department normally works with, that those transactions work in synchronization with the CAM system, and that the ERP system also knows of those transactions simultaneously. And that's an important internal control that we're working on, and that's why we're very much part of the software installation in departments, because we need to know what's happening in the cash at all times on your behalf. One piece of good news is we finally have, at the end of this month, March 31st, will be the last time that the BITEC system, our old financial system, will be accessed, because we have terminated our contract with BITEC. So in this next fiscal year, the county should be seeing a savings of about $130,000, with the termination of that contract. One of the big things that's happening now, and I know that IT will be coming sometime in the future to make a presentation to our board, is that we have an opportunity with Tyler Technologies, which is the parent company associated with the New World ERP system, to purchase some of the other products that they use, like document management system, Tyler Forms. That's kind of it's part of the document system, but hosted solutions. One of the things that have been talked about many times is that the way of the future for providing software services to government is through hosted solutions. For disaster recovery purposes, this is an essential that we moved in that direction as soon as possible. With our limited resources, this is really the only alternative that governments have to ensure the viability of our systems. The risk management portion of responsibility is to oversee the oversight of workers' compensation, property liability, pollution, medical malpractice, crime bond coverage through the Trindle Insurance Fund. We provide fiscal oversight for loss prevention, in the last this year and last year, we have procured earthquake insurance for the first time for essential county buildings like the jail. This year, we have covered our NOC 1, which is where the IT infrastructure is. Which this was a big concern for the CAO's office, that if we had a major earthquake, that all these servers, all the switches, if somehow they were all destroyed, we would really be in a really bad situation, especially since all of that we purchased at a real deep discount because we bought them used. Part of my duties is to sit on the Trindle Insurance Fund and the CSAC EIA board. I think I went over just a little bit, but that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas? Supervisor Patello?
I just have a comment. You got the most interesting job in the county. And, boy, let your be that a secret.
Supervisor
I just want
Medina?
to say something real quick here. Is I did some research when I saw you were coming up here. And I know this is an elected office, but in order to run for the office, there are certain qualifications you must have. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
What are
that's
they?
Right. The candidate must have either a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting. In addition, have, I believe, 3 years of advanced financial management, or maybe a CPA or a CIA, certified internal auditor, or a chartered accountant. But those are basically the candidate has to have formal education in accounting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Let me open up to the public. Anyone from the public? No, close it. Thank you, Joe, for your presentation.
Thank you.
We will now go to closed session.
You know what? We have a consultant here that's costing us a fortune. And why don't we knock out these next two items? Shouldn't take that long. I'm part of the ad hoc committee. I know we could cut it real short as far as where we're at.
Okay.
And I know we could do this in 5 minutes.
Okay. I will hold you to that.
Okay,
Chase,
thank
give me
you.
5 minutes on that clock.
Yeah.
And I wasn't kidding.
It started already.
It started already.
Yeah, well, and
He was talking.
That's for both items?
Yeah, both items.
both items, so we can knock it out.
I took speed talking, so I'll just move right along. Because Kathleen Gallagher, Integrated Waste Management Project Manager, Kevin McCarthy actually stepped out to take a conference call. We are your technical expertise for integrated waste management on a contract basis. I was asked to provide, Chase, could you help me bring up the right one here? Oh, here it is. I was asked to provide a presentation on our integrated waste management projects, as well as a very brief oversight on what we do at the county. So the Joint Powers Authority was formed due to landmark legislation called AB 939 that mandated each jurisdiction divert 50% of their waste from landfill by the year 2000 and maintain that diversion from landfill.
You know, I have an idea, Kathleen.
Certainly.
Why don't we just do an update? Where we had a meeting last week with the city of Hollister and the city of San Juan. It's
Sure.
a joint powers MOU, and it was a good meeting. The purpose is to see if we're going to continue as a joint powers authority or
Regional
joint
agency,
powers
yes.
agreement, and maybe save this presentation for another day when we have a little bit more time.
Absolutely.
But maybe if we could give an update as far as what the conclusion of that meeting was,
Certainly.
because we'll have another one
Glad to do it. So that basis brings us to our franchise agreement with Recology. We have our 3 regional agency members, Hollister, San Juan Bautista, the county. We have our agreement with Recology expiring June 2018. We had basically a split decision in City of Hollister on the staff recommendation to go to request for proposal. So this board, as well as San Juan Bautista, decided to go to request for proposal. City of Hollister actually voted twice. They were a split vote twice to go to request for proposal. They had requested that the 3 regional agency members meet as part of our regional agency. So thank you to Supervisor Botello, Supervisor Munzer. Last Thursday, the regional agency members met. There were 2 elected officials from each of the regional agency members, with the exception of San Juan Bautista, who had Council Member Tony Bach and Roger Grimsley, their city manager. I think it was a very engaged conversation in terms of the franchise agreement and the purpose of the franchise agreement. The situation is that the franchise agreement that we currently have is very outdated. The programs that are in there actually do not meet the current state mandates. So one of the key issues were, as a discussion that we had with the ad hoc committee, is to bring the current franchise agreement up to state mandates and come to the present in terms of meeting those state mandates. There was a consensus by the three regional agency members that directed us as your integrated waste management staff to do community outreach to each of the 3 jurisdictions. Look at the programs that we may want to include in the new franchise agreement. So we would be meeting with the residential community, the business community, get their feedback on the new programs that may be included in the new franchise agreement, develop a new franchise agreement. And what the direction from the ad hoc committee is to not go to request for proposal at this time, but to request a very specific proposal from Recology with specific cost forms that they would complete. And then those cost forms, the proposal would be evaluated by the committee. It would be brought to each of the elected official, the board, the city councils for consideration, and at that time it would be decided whether the Recology's proposal was acceptable. If it was not acceptable, the option obviously would be to consider going to request for proposal at that particular time. So at that currently, what we are doing is developing the community outreach and developing the draft franchise agreement to at least bring it up to a minimum standard for consideration. We are anticipating to meet in May back with the ad hoc committee. And Supervisor Patel, I wanted to make sure I covered the issues you wanted me to cover, and Supervisor Munzer. A lot more going on with integrated waste management. We met last night regarding the landfill ad hoc committee. Thank you, Supervisor Medina, Supervisor Munzer. Much going on there, but I will wait for a later date because I know folks are hungry for lunch.
You didn't read my mind, did you?
I know I am.
Okay.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say this action is in the spirit of collaborating and working with our agency partners and the City of Hollister. Their committee members were directed by their council to come to the meeting, see if we can just go work with Recology, come back with a good proposal. If we can, so be it. If we can't, then we go out to RFP. Okay. And I felt like that was, reasonable.
Supervisor Patel, you feel?
Yeah, I can't say it any better. And Ms. Gallagher covered pretty much all of the points where we're at with the committee. And public outreach is an effort to let inform the public that this is coming up. If there's any ideas out there that could make waste service better, we certainly want to explore that. and also for the committee to explore ideas that we'd like to see in our next hauling contract. And one of the ideas I threw out there is a waste recycling facility in our resource recovery park. I think a contract of any length should include maybe an exploration of that.
Hold that thought. Before I ask my fellow supervisors, let me open it up to the public, and I do that to give the public the opportunity. And we can combine both number 25 and 26 together. So if you want to speak on both items, I'll give you 6 minutes if that's what you want. So do we have any speaker cards on 25, 26? Anyone from the public on 25, 26? None? Okay. All right. So what I hear from my fellow supervisors on this committee is that you want us to give you the permission to renegotiate, to give a second look at ecology.
Well, we're not. I guess it's. I don't know if it's renegotiating as much as a proposal coming forward. And if it's worthwhile and meets the goals of the committee, then we'll bring it back to our respective boards where we won't go out for the RFP. With 26, Supervisor Munzer, you could help me because I agree. Maybe it's premature for us to rescind our resolution to go out to an RFP, especially when we don't know if we'll have to.
So you want to move this to another meeting?
Continue the RFP process until a later date.
Okay. So I guess I would say if we don't rescind the resolution 2016-103, then I want the board's permission to work with the other two agencies on a proposal from.
Okay. I need one more supervisor. Let me, Supervisor Rivas, you support it? Okay, good. Supervisor Medina?
My only question is if we don't rescind this, we can still go out and negotiate?
Yes.
I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with it.
And if I just quickly may clarify that the ad hoc committee, we talked about a very defined set of response that we would request from Recology. We didn't want them to come back with just a broad range. We wanted to be a very concise proposal from Recology along with cost forms so we could be really clear about what the costs were to meet some additional mandates, just so each Hollister, San Juan Bautista, the board could consider those separately. So it's a very defined process that we're talking about.
Okay. All right. So can I have a motion to direct the subcommittee to continue other options in terms of the curbside services?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Okay, can I have a motion on the board to continue this meeting to the April, the last second meeting in April? Yes.
Number 26?
Yeah, number 26.
I'll move that we continue item number 26 to the final meeting in April.
Thank you.
The final board meeting in April.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we did that. Okay, now we go to closed session. County Council?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session to discuss agenda items number 27 through 32 on today's agenda. Agenda item number 27 is to meet and confer with the county's labor negotiators. Those negotiators are Allison Hauk, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Georgia Cochran, and Steve Coffey. The employee organizations involved are the Institute